Oh, what just happened? How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the channel. This is Big Daddy Dave, and we are going to start this off in the completely opposite direction than intended. Sorry about that. For some reason, this just popped over to the wrong thing. Sorry about that. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the channel. This is Big Daddy Dave, and this is another Farm Sim Talk. How is everybody doing tonight? I hope you're having a fantastic day so far. I am joined here by a fellow content creator, modder, and map maker with the Stover. Stover, how are you doing tonight?
Good evening, Big Daddy Dave. How are you, man?
I am doing fantastic, even though kind of starting out a little bit on the weak side, but we will only go up
No,
from here.
that's okay. When you're in queue, you're getting ready to start these things, and the countdown's going down, and then you start pushing buttons. And I've done that before. I went live, my first live. I didn't have any audio, and I'm just chatting, like I'm having a good old time. And fortunately, I had another computer open, and people are going, we can't hear you. What are you saying?" And I'm like, "Oh no." I had to cancel the stream and just shut it down, and we called it a do-over.
I've done that as well. I've done that as well. So, Farm Sim Talk is a interview show where we get to talk to other creators throughout the farming simulator space, and we just get to kind of introduce you to a kind of more deeper personal side to that individual. And like I said, tonight we are here with you. So before we get going, do you want to give people locations of where they can find you?
Yeah, so I'm with the Stovers on YouTube, and with the Stovers on Facebook, and I'm with the Stovers on itch.io, and that's really it. I guess I'm on Discord because we're doing this on Discord right now, and I haven't quite gotten fully versed in Discord. I'm still learning. My wife, she's like, I don't understand how you can do all this technology stuff, but then you can't figure out some applications. It's like the remote control of the TV. I don't know how to work that, and I don't know how to work Discord either.
It's amazing in how we can kind of compartmentalize, certain functions throughout our lives. And yeah, I'm the same way. I am very well versed in a lot of different things, but you get me in front of certain apps or certain things, it's like, okay, walk me through this like I'm two. So do you want to give anybody any shout outs before we get going?
Shout outs. Oh, I didn't think of shout outs. I shout out to the mod community, the modders, the creators, I think is really important. I actually had a really had an interesting message come into me today. It was from Northwest Mods and Edits. Really, really great modding group. And we were talking about like FS22 to FS25 conversions and how he was kind of disappointed in how some things were going out there in the wild. But just really a shout out, I think, to everyone that's really, really down making mods, spending all the time that it takes to make these mods and get them out there, and then working through some of the struggles and the community sometimes is a little feisty. So yeah, shout out to them.
Oh, very good shout out. I love it. So let me give a couple quick shout outs here. So Crimea River, Pippa, we got Rail Fanning Jonah, we've got Jody and Crustu. How's everybody doing tonight? Thank you all for joining us here tonight. So we're going to go ahead and get rocking and rolling and go into our first segment here. This segment is called Digging Up Dirt. This is the getting to know you a little bit better segment. So, and this is the more personal you, not the person that you put out in front on your channel and through your mods and maps. So, I'm going to start us out with a kind of a general question. So, have you ever been to any exotic places, whether around the United States or throughout the world?
Exotic. I mean, are we looking for fancy exotic, or are we looking for like that's unique exotic?
I mean, it's one of those you can kind of pick your poison on that one. Go ahead
Okay,
and
okay. So, when I was younger, and I'm still this way, I had a fascination with nuclear energy. Fascinated by it. I don't know why. I don't know how. I mean, we're talking like elementary, middle school. And when I went out to Arizona when I was probably in the fifth grade with my family for vacation, and it's Arizona, so Grand Canyon. There's all these things out there, and what did I want to do? I wanted to go and visit the Palo Verde nuclear generating station, which we did. And I remember it for my entire life. I went to a nuclear power plant on vacation to tour it.
That's actually really cool. I never knew that you could actually go and tour something like that.
Well, this was many, many, many years ago. So this was pre a lot of things that have happened in the world. And I actually got angry because you couldn't really go in, but they had a visitor center and they had like exterior tours. They would drive you around. So I got to get in a van and drive around. But like I wanted to go inside and check it out. And I think it's because of like equipment and machinery, and it kind of like moves into farm sim a little bit. Like I've loved mechanical things, things that make noise, things that make steam and smoke and require grease and hammers to keep them going.
I gotcha. So you consider yourself kind of not necessarily a mechanic, but do you consider yourself kind of handy with tools or?
Yeah, very handy. I would prefer to try and fix something, even if I fix it poorly, than to call someone. And that's for better or for worse. My wife would argue probably sometimes that that's for worse. Um, but no, I would very much prefer to buy something old and make it run like it's new.
Absolutely. I share that passion myself. Uh, so would you consider yourself maybe a car guy,
Oh
motorcycles, things like
yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah, big car guy. We were, growing up, you've got this, is my opinion. You've kind of got sports families, and then you've got car families, and I'm sure there's other facets as well. But we were not a sports family. It wasn't like we were going to watch football on the weekends. We'd go to car shows. Friday night, we'd, drive down to the old, it was called the Dog and Suds down on the south side of Indianapolis, which is where we live. Look at cars. And that's from a very, very young age. Always had a fascination with that. And it's still really, I mean, my closest group of friends, that's that's what holds us all together, I think, is cars.
That's awesome. So let me ask you this: if money was no object, what would be the
mm
one car
mm.
that you'd go after?
Well, so this is I mean, this is the question that everyone gets asked when you say you're a car person.
Mm-hmm.
And if money were no object, I wouldn't want one car. That's the thing. I would rather have money set at a limit, and like, but I could get multiple cars. Um so sure, like when you're a kid, every kid had the poster of the Lamborghini or the Ferrari or the Testarossa. Um my best friends had a light up poster that it was like five or six supercars in a garage, and it was like the reason for higher education. Um, but I tend to kind of venture back into the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. I think that was like the real heyday for horsepower. I know things are crazy right now, but nothing modern really strikes my interest. So I would go back into like the 90s. I'm a big Corvette fan, always have been. Um, would probably, I'd be very happy with say a C4 ZR1 from like 90 to 95, that era. Love the old AMG cars from, the early Mercedes era, right before they really became mainstream. Um, Usually American. My buddy and I, we would argue all the time. He was a Ford guy, I was a Chevy guy, so it was, I was always pushing his buttons, he'd be pushing my buttons.
Mm-hmm.
But I do not think there is one car out there that, if money is no object, that you could get if you are a true car enthusiast, because one car just wouldn't suffice.
I completely respect that approach. It's the whole Jay Leno approach. I
Yes, it is.
understand it. I understand completely.
I got the flannel. Hmm.
It's funny you mentioned the C4. My father actually had a C4 up until here about 2 years ago. He bought it from a neighbor, and it was the oh goodness, I forget the name of the color, but it was the red with the black convertible top, and oh, it was a beauty.
Was it
But
darker red or was it bright red?
it was the bright red, yeah.
Okay, so it's bright red. Remember
Yep.
what year it was?
Oh, 95?
95. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it
So
was.
towards the end of the C4 run. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I remember it was before the ODB 2 chips really started getting popular, which I think came out in
Okay.
like 96. So it
Yep.
was,
Yeah.
yeah, it was definitely one of those. It was a beaut. Um, but he had to dump
Now
a
they don't
lot of
they
money into it.
they don't get a lot of respect,
No.
right? They're kind of the stepchild of the Corvette line. I mean, you look at Corvette now. What I just read, the new C8 ZR1 just set 5 lap records at
Hmm.
4 tracks in North America. Like, set them as production car by like 2 and 3 seconds over the previous vehicle that set those records. That's a supercar. C4 is not a supercar, but
No.
it's still cool. It's still cool.
C4 is definitely one of those that if you're driving in a straight line, it's an amazing ride. But you sling
Yeah.
that thing around a corner, you're not going to be happy.
Oh, no. Yeah, yeah. And a little some rattles here and there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But I no, I do. I enjoy some of the older. Gosh, we joke. I consider them analog cars. I like analog cars,
Hmm.
and those are, in my opinion, cars that don't. They might have some computer tech in them, but they're not going to force you traction control, stability controls, all the whiz bang gizmos. Those are cool. They make you very, very fast, right? I get it. They make you very, very fast, but there's just something artificial about it that doesn't feel right.
I've always attested that the more computers and wizardry that you get in these modern cars, the more disconnected you feel from it.
Yep. Oh
Which
yeah.
is
Yep.
why I always loved having like an old manual transmission vehicle. My first car growing up in Michigan was an '89 Mustang,
Okay. Oh,
and
you were a Ford guy.
no, 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 no,
Oh,
no.
oh, okay, okay,
It was
okay.
it was available. It was cheap, and being 16 years old, that was what I had.
You you took it,
I
right?
took it,
Yeah.
and very
Yep.
happily. But no, it's I did have a lot of Fords growing up, but it was just one of those. It was just out of convenience, and they were readily available.
Yeah.
And
Now, don't tell anyone I said this, but I mean, when we're streaming, but if I were buying a new truck, I'd probably buy a Ford. I hate to
ooh,
say that. I know GM's having some real doozy of an issues with some engines. I think I'd go for an F-150 with the good old 5.0 in it,
mm-hmm,
Coyote
mm-hmm.
motor. I think that's
I
where I would go.
I also heard that Chevy's kind of catching some heat right now because of they had the whole Android Auto and Apple CarPlay on their display units and whatnot, and they ended up peeling them out because they thought they could do it better.
I bet they didn't do it better.
No, that's what a lot of people are saying.
Yeah.
Oh man, I tell you what, I could talk about cars all night, but we'll go ahead and move this along. So
Far, I know we got Farm Sim, right?
I
Yeah,
know
I
we
know.
we got to get to that
Okay, we'll
eventually.
we'll sprinkle some things in there throughout the show.
There you go. I'll take that as a compromise. So, uh, without going into too much details, do you have a job outside of content creation in the
Yeah,
real
yeah.
world?
I think we all do, don't we? I think all of us are, working the usual grind. I do. Yeah, I worked in television when I first got out of college many years ago. Did that for about 10, 15 years, and then I couldn't handle the travel. We were traveling all the time. The stress got to me. Really, like, it's amazing how stress can really just impact you mentally and physically. and fortunately was able to find a position here locally and work in just a spectacular environment for a wonderful company, and I enjoy it very much. But it's very different from television. But it allows me to work the day, do the normal, right, Monday through Friday, and have the time on the weekends to be with family first, and then when there is some extra time, play a game or two or make some content.
Absolutely. So actually, you just kind of led me into the next question. I was going to ask you about family and how do you find the balance between work, family, and content creation.
It's easy to get out of balance. I can tell you that much. Um, I don't know about your mind. I am can get involved in something. I have an idea, be it something creative, maybe a new mod has come out, or I'm working on a map, or something, and you get a little obsessive with it, and it's very easy for the hours to tick by. So I think you just have to be cognizant of it more than anything, and realize that this isn't a job. This is for fun. Um, we're 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 not curing cancer, right? It is just a game. We have to be cognizant of that. It's good that we have it as a hobby, but yeah, it can be tough. It can be very tough. There have been some late nights where I look down and I go, "Oh my gosh, it's 3 a.m. I really need to be in bed."
I certainly have a very difficult time with that because like you said, lose track of time very, very easily, and it's very easy to lose track of time with Farming Simulator because you get into
Mm-hmm.
doing a job. That job can take hours from start to finish, and by
Mm-hmm.
the time you look down, oh my goodness, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I better scurry off to
Mm-hmm.
bed. Yeah, no,
Mm-hmm.
it's I hear you there. So we established that you're into cars, and
Yeah.
that it sounds pretty heavily in respect. Do you have any other hobbies? Do you do hiking, fishing? You mentioned you're not big into sports in your younger days. Has that changed as you've gotten older?
I was in sports. I did the usual middle school and high school sports, but I was never very good at it. I think if you're not good at something, right, it just kind of fades away. So that's where cars got involved. I love photography. I've always enjoyed media. Um, that was my passion originally. I had these grand ideas of continuing in the field. But when you work in something that is also a hobby or a passion, it slowly erodes at that hobby, and it's no longer fun. So actually getting out of that industry has allowed me to have fun with it again, if that makes any sense.
Oh,
So yeah, I love techie things. I love computers. I love cameras. Um, yeah, and unfortunately, you can kind of bring it all together when you start doing content creation or a game like Farm Sim.
oh, absolutely. And yeah, it sounds like that kind of went hand in hand with, like you were saying, you're broadcasting, you're into photography and things like that, and all that really kind of culminates now. Like you said, you were able to walk away from the broadcasting, and now you're into this kind of, uh, you know, for lack of a better word, media space here for content creation. And yeah, I completely understand how you can kind of erode that passion that you have as a hobby when you're doing it for a living. So do you have like favorite movies or books or music that you're into?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So, movies are my big thing. I do love movies. And gosh, you asked about the favorite car. There's money's no object. What's your favorite car? I don't think similar response. I don't think there's one. If you enjoy that a movie, there's no easy way to say this is my favorite movie ever. because there's just so many good movies out there. Unfortunately, I don't think, and I'll stop for a moment. I'll say this. I always joked about my parents as they were getting older. They loved stuff from their era, right? And I was like, "Mom, what are you guys doing? Like all the new cool stuff is new." I find myself in that mode now where I'm looking back and going, "Wow, things were better back then." So I don't have a ton of modern movies that I really, really, really love. Um, but I do love action adventure. I love sci-fi, but what I would consider realistic sci-fi, and I don't even know if that's a category. But the way I'll describe it is, think of the movie Arrival, which I think is spectacular, or the movie Sphere, or Event Horizon. So kind of like they're not so far into the future that things are just crazy. They're futuristic, but it's like modern people experiencing the future, aliens, disclosure, things of that nature. Really, really fascinating.
Yeah.
Time travel. Gotta love time travel movies.
Oh yes, yes. So it sounds like things that could theoretically happen, but may seem far fetched in the present timeline.
Yes, yes. But now, then I'm going to blow you away here. My absolute favorite movie, and I said this wasn't possible, but is the movie Heat. Remember Heat?
Oh, wouldn't that? Oh my goodness, I can imagine the cover.
Okay. Yes. Yes.
Wasn't it with? No, it wasn't with Arnold. It was with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
No.
No, who
No,
was?
not Arnold. So Heat was the heist, the big heist, the big bank heist, the big shootout that happened. One of the best in the probably the history of cinema. Robert De
Oh,
Niro. Was it De Niro? Pacino? You remember that?
yeah, yeah.
You'll have to look it up. You'll have to look it up. Do you remember the movie The Game? Did you ever watch the movie The Game? It's another really good one.
Remind me of that one.
Michael Douglas. Michael Douglas. He is a very wealthy sole proprietor of a business. His brother gets him a birthday present of The Game.
Sean
And the
Penn, right?
game, yes, the
Mm-hmm.
game, the game is everywhere. The game changes depending upon who it is. That one will blow your mind.
That is a very good movie. Yes, that one I'm familiar with. He, like I said, I can see it. I can see the cover, but I don't remember it. That's gonna nag at me.
Promise you, you ever check it out? There's clips on YouTube all over the place. Once you look at it, you'll recognize it. You'll remember it.
Yep.
If you're into that. Now, if you're not into that type of genre, it might be a terrible movie for you.
So, what would you say would be the weirdest movie that you've seen, or the most obscure movie that you've seen?
Most obscure movie that I've ever seen. So I mentioned early on my fascination with nuclear. So I think a spectacular movies from the 1979 China Syndrome. Probably very obscure for folks that have never seen it, but just a really, really well made movie. It scared a lot of people back in that time, but it was very good. Have you ever seen it? Have you ever heard of it?
No, that one I'm not familiar with.
Jane Fonda, Michael Douglas again is in it. Um, you've got, gosh, off the top of my head, here I did do this, so I have to cheat a little bit. I got two computers as I'm doing streaming. Oh, you know what? This one it turned off. I'm gonna turn it
Uh-oh.
back on, but I'm gonna get you the cast of characters from the China Syndrome. It's a really, really good movie. It's an interesting movie because I'll tell you this. It came out just a couple of weeks before the 3 Mile Island nuclear disaster that occurred in Pennsylvania, and
Oh
it
wow.
was just it was coincidence, but it scared a lot of people, probably for the wrong reasons. Um, But yeah, that's probably the most obscure movie I've ever watched.
So you'd mentioned the nuclear power and you having a passion for it. Can you kind of pinpoint where that kind of passion for nuclear came from?
Came from this movie, actually, believe it or not. I remember watching it as a kid and being fascinated by it. So yeah, Michael Douglas, Jane Fonda, Jack Lemmon, Wilford Brimley.
Okay.
Really, really, really good movie. That I would recommend if again if you're it's a '70s movie, so it's not gonna be like crazy modern animatronics and like visual amazement. But it's a story. It's a well written story, and I think that is where it came from. And then I would start reading books. Um, the whole '80s Chernobyl disaster was fascinating for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great series from HBO that came out on that just recently.
Was very
I think
good.
that, yeah, I think the general population has a fascination with that because it was such a terrible event.
Mm-hmm.
And there is some there's some horror behind it that it's scary. It's scary. So there's fascination in that.
Well, and what's wild about that whole event is that it was so entirely preventable.
Hmm.
It was all through, a series of tests that the day crew didn't have time or the ability to run, so they went with the night crew to do it, and the night crew was just inefficient in the knowledge base to be able to perform said test.
Hmm.
And it ended up in one of the biggest and well-known disasters that's ever occurred on this planet.
Yep.
So yeah, it's wild and how something's so something that should have been so simple with the right
Hmm.
crew ended up
Hmm.
leading to something so devastating.
And the cover up, I
Yep.
think, and the idea that nothing could go wrong. And it's one of those early reminders for many people that not everything you're told is true.
Absolutely. So what about books? Do you do a lot of reading or?
I don't do a ton of reading. I've got a friend that I work with. She actually has a YouTube channel. Does a very good job. She does the books. Does there's a whole like category of YouTube that's very very popular. She got me a book, and I read it was about time travel, and I've got it over there, but I can't remember the name of it. I'm trying to look. I can't see it from here, but I don't read a ton of books. I tend to get like into a book, and because I can't finish it right away, like it takes time to finish, I get bored and I put it down and then I forget about it.
I completely understand. I do the same thing. It's one of those that because of the amount of time that's dedicated to it is just so great that I just trail off.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And what about music? Do you have a favorite genre or?
Yeah, so one of my, I think there's like your big genre. So I love Ben Folds Five, some of the originals from that group. Are you familiar with them?
I'm not.
If you again, it comes down to personal preference. You may or may not like it, but a lot of piano, great group. Still, Ben still working to this day. Very big into music and music creation for students as well. But a big fan of that. And then there's a lot of independent. Andy's got a really great community, theaters and music. One of the local bands that I really really enjoy is a good friend of mine works called the Bombcats. Bombcats is a great group that I listen to here locally. They do a lot of performances around the Indianapolis area. And they're
Awesome.
like they're rock, so guitars and bass and um, get you pumped up.
Awesome. I love some good rock and roll, so I'm That definitely sounds like up my alley. To kind of backtrack just ever slightly, so the reason that I asked the weirdest or oddest movie, book, band, whatever, uh, the reason I asked that question is one because I like talking about my oddest movie that I've seen. I'm a big Star Wars fan,
Okay.
and from the original days, 4, 5, and
Okay.
6.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know this, but I think it was after the fourth movie that came out, so number four, not the fourth movie,
Okay.
George Lucas was tasked with making a made for TV special. It
Okay.
was back in those days, they would run like their version of a movie, and this was called the Star Wars Holiday Special. Have you ever heard of it?
I have not. I have not.
So it had all the original cast. It had Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker. It had why am I forgetting his name? Han Solo, Harrison Ford. It had the guy who played Chewbacca. I mean, it had Princess Leia. It had everybody. So it should have been just a complete made for TV, awesome kind of thing, especially considering that it was right off the back of the original movie. And it got so much popularity and so much attention to it. It even had additional people who were like B. Arthur, from the Golden Girls. So it had like a really good star-studded cast. When I tell you that this is a movie for pure torture, this is one of those movies where you sit there and talk to one of your close buddies and it's like, hey, have you ever seen such and such? It's amazing. You ought to check it out. You hype it up, and then you get them to sit down and watch it with you, and you just torture them for the next hour and a half.
Really bad, huh?
It's really bad.
Okay.
Really bad. And almost nobody's heard of it. Almost nobody's ever seen it. But I'm hopeful that one of these days I'll find that fellow traveler who has actually witnessed this atrocious movie.
And
One of
Lucas
these days.
produced it, huh?
He directed it, he produced it, had all the original cast. When I tell you, like everybody was just on vacation for this particular project that they did.
Okay.
Even the makeup artist was on vacation. You look at Mark Hamill, and his makeup just looks terrible, just absolutely horrendous. Everybody just looked terrible. There's just you can't even use like the excuse of going from like a movie that was made back before high definition was a thing, and then having
Mm-hmm.
it converted to high definition, and you get to see all those imperfections that you didn't notice in the standard edition or the low res editions. Like you don't get that. Like it's so apparent in
It's
how
just
bad.
bad.
It's just
Okay.
bad. Really,
Okay.
really bad. I recommend you go and look up Star Wars holiday specials. Just look at images on Google, and you will
Okay.
see just from the images just how bad it is. Especially when you compare it to how good the original movies were.
Okay.
So, anyways, little side note, but always something I like to bring up because it deserves more attention than it got.
Okay. I see it. I see it. 1978.
Yep.
Yeah. All right.
And like you said, you look at the
Oh.
cast and you would never imagine that it'd be as bad as it was. But I'll put it to you this way: there's a moment of like 20 or so minutes where it's Chewbacca and his family, specifically his family, and they're just talking for like
Okay.
20 minutes. But it's not like English like you and I are speaking now,
No,
or
it's the
it's the,
traditional.
it's the
Yeah.
trilling noise, and they're just going for 20 minutes. It's awful. It's so bad. But like I said, it's one of
Yeah.
those that you fool, a really good friend, and it's like, oh man, you gotta see it. It's like it's one of those sleepers, and yeah. Then they sit there and stare at you for like the whole time. It's like, what do you mean this is good? No, you just gotta sit back and watch. You trust me, it gets good. Anyways, uh, so what would you consider doing if content creation for one reason or another was no longer an option for you?
Oh gosh. Well, I don't think anything would change. I just wouldn't be creating content on YouTube. I'd just take whatever hobby I have with photography or video or cars and just ramp that up. And candidly, I mean, that's all we talked about this with folks. Sometimes I even get burnt out a little by it. I'm sure you may be experienced some times like that. And you take some time off. And no, I don't think it would be. No, I don't. I don't. I could deal with it. I don't want to do that right now. I enjoy this, but I think that's the important thing is with any hobby, anything you're doing. The moment you stop enjoying it, I think it's when it's time to stop.
Absolutely. And kind of to modify the question ever so slightly, so if let's say content creation was fine, but let's say giants for some reason they're like, okay, you know what? We're no longer making Farming Simulator. It's no longer profitable, or it's no longer this, or it's no longer that. Whatever the excuse is, they're no longer making Farming Simulator past FS25.
Hmm.
What do you go to from there?
Racing. I think I would go into some other type of racing or sim game. I think it's amazing what is out there right now with graphics performance. Game. I mean, look at Microsoft Flight Simulator 24.
Mm-hmm.
Or is it 24 or 25? I can't remember. I watched a video on that a couple days ago, and there are modders in Flight Sim that are now creating driving areas in Flight Sim. So it's a flight sim by definition, but because the mapping of the ground and the terrain is so good, people are creating vehicles that you can now drive in flight sim.
Wow.
And the video that I watched was someone in a TRX pickup truck that looked, in my opinion, like just like a pickup truck you'd be driving in farm sim, maybe even slightly better photorealism, driving out to Area 51 in Groom Lake and driving down the dirt road and going up and over through the main gate and just spectacular. Actually, I've had so one of the pipe dreams that my friends and I have talked about with gaming is that the open world environment. We've always been limited to a very small map. Um, and when it expands to the entire world, which something like Flight Simulator has, and then you start adding all of the parameters of suspensions and speed and tire grip or in the case of flight sim aerodynamics for flight, just the possibilities are endless and almost scary to a point if you start to add in like VR or augmented reality. Where do we go? Where do we go with this? Do games at some point become almost indistinguishable between real life? I don't know. Sometimes that sounds really awesome, but it can also be a little scary too.
Oh yeah, especially when you consider, there's certain games out there where people already kind of do get so enveloped in them that they kind of lose themselves to it. I'm thinking in particular a game like World of Warcraft, where there were the players out there for the longest time where that was, basically 22, 23 hours a day. They're sitting there gaming and just lost in this like fantasy world that has been developed for them. Yeah, I could only imagine if one day things get so kind of realistic that you basically lose yourself, almost like
Hmm.
there was a movie with Bruce Willis, came out a little while
Yes,
ago,
yes.
Surrogate, I think it was called.
Yeah, yeah. It's where they were in kind of like pods.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah,
Like
and they lived their lives. They were. It was an interesting movie.
it was a really good movie. So yeah, definitely a recommended one. But yeah, I mean, I could see that being reality one day. kind of in the kind of, especially with VR getting as prevalent as it is. Um, yeah, I don't know. Just one of those that it's a thought that is cool, but definitely could have very large ramifications. For the kind of whole of humanity.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, so my first I remember game that I ever played as a kid, computer game. Um, I mentioned that only because there were always arcades when you'd go to like Pizza Hut, and you'd walk out and there'd be little arcades you could play. Some driving games, terrible graphics, but as a kid you don't care.
Mm-hmm.
But then the first real game that I ever played was Electronic Arts Need for Speed. I don't know
Good
if you remember
game.
that.
Good game.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
for computer came out. We had a computer, it wouldn't run it. I remember Dad having to go in. We had to buy extra RAM for this thing to run. And when I say we're buying extra RAM, we were going from like 12 megabytes to 24 megabytes, whereas now we're in gigabytes. Like we had to upgrade the computer, and that would cost a ton of money. But here now we're in this game where I'm inside this car, and I can see the dashboard, I can see the tachometer, I can see, like, they took these cars, this gaming company, and they tested them, and they got the sounds. Again, this was what, 1995, 96. You got the sounds kind of accurate, but it was amazing. But now jump to current and look at the games that are out there. Look at the realism.
Mm-hmm.
It's really spectacular, and it's only going to get better.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you look at a series like Forza, or I mean, even Need for Speed is still a game that's still being made today, in many different renditions. It's incredible. It's incredible to see where games have come. Because I started playing games, back when, like, the Nintendo, that was my first system. Thinking of like the old 8-bit graphics and stuff like that.
Hmm.
To now we have like things like Farming Simulator that we're all very familiar with, and we get to see the interiors and exteriors, every little nut and bolt, the fan of the motor spinning away, and just all these different kind of details that are prevalent in games nowadays. It's incredible when you really kind of sit back and think where we started to where we are today. It's
Hmm.
incredible.
Hmm. And I think that's where the simulator type game is so different from others out there. So you mentioned Need for Speed still exists. It does, but it went a completely different direction. It,
Yes.
it is it is gamified to the point it's arcade. It started as a driving game, as an enthusiast could drive these cars and test them, and it's not even close to that anymore. Even Forza is that way now.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue that some of the games that have stayed true to their colors of Assetto Corsa, and then there's a couple of others I don't remember them off the top of my head. But the reason why they've been so successful is the modders. The modders are the ones that have been able to go in and create and keep the games running, be it through advanced graphics, realistic shaders, or vehicles, or, I mean, you name it. Without them, those games probably would have gone the arcade route because it makes more money.
Yep.
It does. It makes more money, and unfortunately, you lose the true hardcore fan that way.
Oh, without a doubt. And to kind of piggyback off what you're saying, I feel like a lot of that often stems from, that kind of arcadification of those series, because it makes it more approachable for those who are not necessarily the hardcore fans,
Yep,
the ones who
agreed.
are looking for it. So,
I get it. I get
yeah.
it. There's a balance. They can't produce the game if they're not going to have people buy the game. Someone that is really into, so Farm Simulator is a great example of that. If we went to the maximum realism in Farming Simulator, there's going to be a huge following of people, but there's also going to be another group that's doesn't want to get involved. The game doesn't succeed. The game no longer continues. So it's a balance. And I think that's where a game that allows modders to come in and create things kind of bridges that gap a little bit. So you can develop the game, you can arcadeify it a little bit, and then a modder can come in and create something that is increased realism. And then the user, the end user, whoever's playing it, gets to choose if they want to add that mod or not.
Yeah, no, and then that's an amazing point because I always say on my channel how Farming Sim is one of the greatest examples of a game that it is so approachable for any style of player. If you're
Hmm.
wanting just to get a job done, quick, fast, in a hurry, fast farming's your thing, and all that kind of stuff, you have options to be able to do that. If you're one of those players who wants ultra realism, you don't want to even look at a fast farm, or you don't want to look at straps being on your front loader, things like that, and you want to use pallets
Hmm.
and you want or pallet forks, and you want to use like all the realistic kind of things, all in cab and all that stuff. You're able to do that too,
Hmm.
and it's one of the most you not universal, one of the most utility games I think I've ever experienced because it's so
Hmm.
open for any
Hmm.
gaming style. Any player can approach it. They just have to have a even vague interest in the farming process.
Hmm. Hmm. I agree. I agree. And it also it's I think gotten a lot of people interested in farming, um, and the whole agricultural the ag community, which is important, right? It's a very, very, very important thing that we have farmers out there that are, I mean, they're keeping us alive. Period. Period. Like there's no other way around that. So to have a game that creates interest in the real life aspect of it is important as well.
100%, couldn't agree with you more. So you'd mentioned how you started out in broadcast and you kind of went away from broadcast and went into still having the fascination with cameras and equipment and things like that. Do you feel like it was just a kind of natural fit for you to be able to get into the content creation sphere? And on top of that, do you feel that it was almost a dream of yours to be able to do what it is that you're doing now?
I think that I looked at it as something that I could do. And I remember watching other content creators and seeing their success, seeing their joy in it as well. And I will stand by this. I think there's a couple ways to look at it. You can create content because you enjoy doing it, or you can create content just to get views or just to get some clicks or monetary sum out of it. There's a happy median there, but I think if you enjoy it, you're able to produce things that the community will enjoy. They will sense that you are enjoying it. And I was watching it and I saw people having fun and I thought, I'll give it a try. And then I looked at it and thought, well, I've got all the equipment still that I could potentially do this. I still enjoy making video. I still enjoy creating things. This is pre-mod. I wasn't touching mods at this point. And I just gave it a shot. And I go back and look at some of the first video. They were terrible. Oh, they're awful. Sound is terrible. Video is terrible. You're learning all the nuances of the game. You're learning, the graphics settings and how you can get the proper frame rate out of the game. You don't even know where to find mods. You don't know what to do. You could come up with these bogus stories. I've always said, the 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 person you don't want to be in Farming Simulator is a grandpa. Grandpas have it really tough in Farm Sim. They're always dying and giving up their farm because the grandkids are always getting the farm. And apparently, all the grandpas out there, they've done a terrible job keeping their farms up too, because all these folks are trying to revive them. So, and I'm guilty of it as well. I'm looking at you and I'm laughing, but I'm laughing at myself too, because you you don't know your style yet. You don't know how to. You're telling stories. You're creating a story. You're doing it in your head, um, and you're trying to put something coherent on the screen, and hopefully someone watches it and enjoys it. I think that is the creative part behind it is sometimes more enjoyable than the game, if that makes sense. Um, so I gave it a shot, and again, it wasn't great, and I've kept with it, and I've kept with it, and I've kept with it. Um, Started modding a little bit. Terrible. Oh my goodness, it's tough. It's really really tough. I've got a couple of mods out there for 25. I think they made me happy. I enjoyed using them, and I did put them out there. I released them, and I think people have enjoyed them and had some fun with them. But I know that someone that is far more versed in modding than I am could take them and just really, would get rid of all the errors and really fine tune them. I don't have that talent.
Well, and it's certainly one of those things where, if given enough time and you want and have the motivation to do it, I'm certain that you could, get all the errors out and do everything that you wanted to do. As a matter of fact, I was actually earlier today, I was looking at some of the mods that you had created. In particular, it was the subcompact John Deere's. And you had done a video along with the kind of the introduction of said mods,
Yeah.
and you were basically saying the same exact things, like, oh, well, there's errors, there's this and that, but I'm happy with it. And I think at the end of the day, as long as you're happy with it, then that's all that matters. That's number one. And really, I think that's kind of a larger theme, for like my content personally. If I'm happy with it, then that's what matters to me, and I
Hmm.
hope
Hmm.
that I will find the people who also enjoy it along with me. I don't know if you are similar in that regards.
Yes, and I would argue and say that if you're creating something, you're trying, you're just trying, and it's not 100% perfect. I would hope if anyone out there has criticisms or feedback that they're able to help you make it better, not just throw you in the trash. I don't think that happens as much as it should. I know it does happen, but I tend to see the negative, especially when you start reading reviews. You very seldomly you look on some of the pages or the sites you can download mods when there's a really really good mod. You very seldomly see awesome feedback. It's usually the bad mod or the mod that has the errors where you see all the negative feedback.
Mm-hmm.
I wish that wasn't the case. I wish that wasn't the case. And then I wish that if there was a mod that someone creates and they really truly are making it because they want to learn something, that when it's not, say, up to a tier three modder, I don't even, do we have is there a tier system? I don't even know. I would say if you're releasing to giants and you're passing, all of their qualifications and you're getting it out there on the in-game mod hub, I'd say you're pretty high tier. You're pretty talented. That's not to say others that don't do it for, you get what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you can help someone else that is trying, that would be awesome. That would be great. Now, if someone's making mods and they're just doing it to maybe make money, or there's a whole rabbit hole we could go down talking about mods. Some of it's not positive, unfortunately.
Yeah.
There's some shady actors out there as well.
No, absolutely. And yeah, it's one of those that because of this show in particular, I've been fortunate enough to have discussions with other modders, map makers, and two in particular that I can think off the top of my head were Gaming Joy, who was one of the first modders that I had, actually the first modder that I had on this show, and as well as Cavalier Roy. And both of them, absolutely fantastic creators in their own right, do some really great stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the great thing about them in particular, and what I'm kind of finding out through these conversations, is that there's a whole community of people within Farm Sim in the modding spaces where they're extremely open, extremely interested in building up the modding community and making sure that anybody who's willing to put in the effort is, kind of given the ability and attention that they need in order to be able to build themselves up to that
That's
next
great.
tier.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah, so it just, one thing I always love to just throw out there is the amazing community that we do have. There are those squeaky wheels, like you
We
were saying
do.
there, in
Yes.
the
Yep.
rabbit hole, like you were saying,
Yep.
but it is certainly a far more positive community that we have here than those squeaky wheels.
Agreed. Agreed. Sadly, the squeaky wheels, right? They get the, what do they say? They get the grease. They get the
Mm-hmm.
oil. We
Yep.
tend to focus on that. No, I agree completely. And again, the game wouldn't be what it is without the modders.
a hundred
Period.
percent.
I stand by that.
No, and I couldn't agree with you more. I've said the same exact thing. Giants has made an amazing game, an amazing
Yep.
series. Going back, as far back as, what, 2008, I think. I could be wrong about that. But it's been, I couldn't imagine being there at the original Farming Simulator release and be like, okay, this is a game that's going to be around for over a decade, kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. I
Mm-hmm.
would have never have thought that if I was around for that kind of thing. I started in FS19,
Okay.
and
Yeah, same
it
here. Same here. 19. Yep.
so it was one of those, I couldn't have thought of it back then. I can see it certainly now. Absolutely, it's amazing the way that it's kind of progressed and then it's grown from there. But yeah, no, it's definitely one of those where the the modding community makes the game as special as it is.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. And that's where I think I can see where someone that maybe is well versed, maybe tenured in modding, they've been doing it for a long time. They could get tired, right? They could just get burnt out by it and stop doing it. And I think that'd be a terrible disservice to the game. Again, I get why they would do it, but the game just wouldn't be what it is.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I can think of people off the top of my head who have experienced that, and it's unfortunate that, you know, they, whether it's, through bad comments or kind of dogpiling, things like that, where people have just kind of, said, you know what, wipe their hands of it, and they're just throwing their hands up in the air, and it's like, I'm done, I'm just done.
Hmm. Hmm.
And at the end of the day, it's us who suffer the most from that. It's the people who are, playing the game and having fun and enjoying it. Now we are poorer for the experience because, one or two people have just gone down and just beaten people up and beaten people up.
Yeah.
I've
Well,
mentioned this. Go ahead.
I was like, the game will shift at that point if that happens. You
Yeah.
know, the Giants would have to pivot, and like we were talking about with Need for Speed, they'd have to pivot and they would have to go a slightly different direction, and probably a direction that the true fan would not enjoy, would not be happy with.
Yeah, absolutely. I can absolutely see that being the case. So you had mentioned very briefly that you had watched other content creators. Would
Hmm.
you say that you were inspired by anyone in particular to go down the adventure of making your own channel and working on mods?
So yes, and probably a bias, a YouTube bias more than anything, because when you go in and type farm sim in, or you look for content creators, you get some of the, again, the higher subbed channels. So you get the squad, over 1 million subs on that channel. Spectacular work, amazing. Turned it into a full time. There's a secondary channel now on it. I think the gentleman that does it, I think his name is Grant. He's now farming. He now has a farm,
Wow.
and he's got his own equipment. So that was one. But then again, that popped up, and I started watching it. Um, Always loved the Rental Man Buck. Always enjoyed that. Um, Fearsome Rhino. I've watched those. I think what I like to do though now is scroll down. So typing in, letting YouTube give you, because again, it's all in the algorithm, the YouTube algorithm. But scrolling down, go down further, scroll down, and you're going to get some of the smaller creators. And I'm starting to really enjoy those as well.
Oh, absolutely. And what you often find is the smaller creators, certainly me being one of them, but not saying that to toot my own horn, but you often find that those smaller creators are sitting there and trying, I don't necessarily want to say harder, but they are having to come up with either solutions or do things that you don't necessarily have to do when you are, once you reach a certain point. Once you reach
Mm-hmm.
that level, you can, again, I don't want to make it sound like it's, all easy peasy or anything like that. It's certainly not. You get into a whole different kettle of worms beyond a certain point, but you you're not having to go through the same issues, the same level of uh, quote unquote struggles as somebody who's got a few hundred subscribers versus somebody who's got several 100,000 subscribers,
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. There's
Yeah.
there's different issues, obviously, but it's you know different kind of stuff, kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And some of the smaller creators I think struggle. I'm there as well. Right, I'm not a huge channel at all. We struggle with, I think, having the proper keywords, having the proper, thumbnail, having a decent story, not going too long, not going too short, having the proper description. Again, we're not doing this as a career. We're just we're learning as we go, and sometimes it can be very disheartening where you put a lot of effort into something, and you don't tend to get many views. And I found early on I would put all this effort sometimes, and really a lot of edits and a lot of cuts and scripted some things, and you just don't get, it doesn't feel like you get the views. And then you might do something that's maybe a little impromptu, a little off the cuff, and oh my gosh, you got more views. Well, what's the difference? I don't know what it is, but I definitely understand the struggles.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, what's one thing that people are generally surprised to find out about you?
About me,
Hmm.
I think the fact that I play Farm Sim more than there's a guy I work with. He's into gaming, and we talk, and he's talking about all the FPSs and stuff that he does, and he goes, "What do you play?" I play a little simulator game, and I play farming sim, and he kind of laughed at me. I'm like, I mean, this is what it is, what I enjoy. Yeah, I think that's honestly one of the people that not in the community. Again, if I talk with someone, what do you do? Oh, you have a YouTube channel? Yeah, I do have a YouTube channel. I play farm sim. What? Yeah.
I've gotten that same exact kind of laugh kind of thing. You tell somebody what you're doing, it's kind of a side thing, and they kind of like, really, like that's a thing. It's like, no,
Mm-hmm.
no, it is. So yeah, I chuckle because I understand exactly what you're saying there. So, do you have any pets?
Yeah, I do. So I'm a big dog fan. Got a golden retriever. And so I've never been a cat fan. Never been a cat fan, but we just got a cat. And I love this cat. Absolutely love this cat. His name is Moo Moo. And he was a stray, and we found him because my daughter found him and really wanted a cat. And he had the saddest looking picture on the Humane Society page. And we went and got him. And my wife left work early one day and said, "I'm going to the Humane Society. I'm going to look at this cat." I'm going, "Oh my gosh, what is happening?" And then she starts sending me pictures of this cat. And I'm like, "You got to get this cat. I love this. The face on this thing and he's the best cat." Again, I've never been a cat fan. I am now. Maybe it's just because we got really, really lucky. But yeah, I'm a huge animal fan, huge animal lover. I would love to honestly live and have more animals, horses or cows, but just don't have the property to do that.
Yeah, I share that passion as well. I've got a couple of dogs myself, and yeah, I've always been a dog person. It's been my experiences that, and certainly doesn't sound like this is one you're gonna share, but it's always been my experiences that cats are about 3 seconds away from trying to end you.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had some very, very bad experiences with cats.
This guy is again, he's older, a little older. Unfortunately, I mean, did not. We took him to the vet. He did not have a great early life. We were told. Probably was on the streets. He was found as a stray. Was in foster for a small amount of time. Was a great animal at a foster home. They unfortunately couldn't keep him. Had to take him to the Humane Society. We got him. He's amazing. He's like a dog. He's a dog cat. So again, yeah, I'm with you. I never had great experience with cats, but this one I really, really like.
It's amazing in how with just the right experience that your whole perspective on something can shift. It's
Very true. Well said. Yep.
yeah, because
Yeah.
like I said, it's one of those that I'm sure that if things had gone differently in my life, actually, uh, so just a very quick story. About a year and a half ago, I was riding. Actually, no, this has been probably almost a year ago. I was driving home with my wife, and all of a sudden we see something out in the middle of the road, and it's late at night, and it's a dog that's out in the middle of the
Okay.
road, and it's one of those like retired police dogs. I knew it was a retired police dog only because I
Like
ended up having
A German Shepherd, maybe.
no, it's similar to the shepherd, the Malinois, I think. I
Okay.
anyways, it was right out in the middle of the road. Beautiful, beautiful dog. And my wife's like, "Oh, you gotta go. Like, I'm gonna go outside and go." It's like, "No, no, you're not gonna go outside. What if he attacks you?" And at the time, she was like, I think she was like 7 or 8 months pregnant,
Okay.
and she's like, "Well, we can't just leave him out there. He's a dark dog, and we only
Yeah.
just barely saw him." Kind of thing, and,
Mm-hmm.
and where we were at, it was right before a curve that would swoop down into this little, not valley, but just kind of little ravine kind of thing. So it would have been very easy for somebody to just come darting around this corner and just completely take this dog out. And I had a dog that was that escaped when I was really, really, really young. It was like my best friend growing up when I was just a baby. And my dad always told me that it was one of the hardest things that he ever had to do was tell me, that my dog had been run over and taken from
Mm-hmm.
me, kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always kind of had that kind of passion. It's like, oh man, it's like, okay, well, I got out of the car and I approached him and it's like, come here, boy, come here, and he was absolutely super friendly and whatnot. And I've seen the dog around, so I knew he just belonged right here in this this yard that I was
Mm-hmm.
right next to. So I start leading him. It's like, come on, boy, let's go. Let's trying to get him back into his yard. And all of a sudden, I hear this like growl, not from him, from his mate.
Mm.
She was a she was the retired police dog. Now the reason that she was
Okay.
retired is that she was too aggressive with
Okay.
anybody around her, so she was getting bitey with the other police officers and
Mm.
whatnot. She would be indistinguishable against who the commands were
Yeah,
against.
yeah, yeah. You can't have that.
So she ended up, starting to lunge at me, attack me, and whatnot because I'm sitting there messing with her mate, kind of thing. So she's lunging and attacking. I'm dodging every once in a while. Well, eventually she gets a hold of my hand, like
Oh no.
right into the meat of my hand, and I got to thinking about it. It's like, man, if that happened like early on in my life or something like that, how my world perspective on dogs
On a
would
dog.
completely
Yeah.
shift.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
Because
I mean, I think our experiences, they shape us. I mean, everything, as young children, um, your entire life is bendable, it's moldable, and that's why you can, yeah, those experiences can be terrifying. And then you never recover from that. I get it. I get it.
So I've got one more question for this segment, and then we'll go into the questions that people have been asking in the chat. So,
Okay.
what was your first paying job?
My first paying job. So my so oh so like s- so I always mowed yards when I was young. I had a lawn mowing business. Does that count for you?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Okay. I didn't know if it had to be like, I'm getting someone's, I'm like doing something for someone else. I guess I am doing something for something else as a mowing yard. But yeah, I mowed yards. I had a lawn care business. Maybe that's what got me into loving tractors and stuff like that. I'm a green guy. I tend to favor green. What do you favor?
I'm a case guy.
Okay, you favor red. There's
Yep.
nothing wrong with that. That's okay. We can still be friends.
All right, I'll take it.
No, I mean the reality is they get the job done. They really do. But no, I had a lawn care business. I was a kid. I was in middle school. Um, I had the little John Deere. It was like an LT 133, and I had a little wagon on the back. But the wagon was red though, so I did have the green and red. So it was split up. And I just drive around the neighborhood and mow yards. And I did that all the way through high school and even into college, and it was um, awesome. Loved it. You're outdoors. You're setting your own schedules. You're obviously at the Mother Nature is sometimes not so friendly, but I did not have the typical flipping burgers, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I didn't have that first job. I didn't work at, a gas station or something like that. Mowed yards, and I really enjoyed it, and would still do it to this day. I love mowing the yard.
That's awesome. Yeah, in my opinion, there's nothing better than going outside and being able to, groom and manicure one's yard. It's
Mm,
very relaxing, very
yes, yes, it is.
um, just I don't want to. I don't necessarily want to say freeing because that's not the right way to describe it. But it's just one of those that it's just you have a job to do and you just get at it.
Hmm.
And especially with all the modern conveniences that we have nowadays, if you got like a nice pair of headphones or something like that, you can
Mm,
sit there and listen to
hmm.
music and just kind of chug away and just get the job done.
And some people hate it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Some people are like, oh, I got to mow the yard. I don't want to do that. Then they hear me. I'm like, I got to mow the yard this weekend. I'm excited to do that. Yeah, no, for me, it's stress relief because you're not. It's just you. You're well, and you're also making something that's potentially, if you go a little long and grass is too high, you're making nice tracks. You're making nice stripes. Things are very pretty, very proper, very clean, very precise. It checks off a lot of boxes for someone that might have an obsessive mind.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. All right. Well, I think that's going to be the end of our first segment here. I'm going to go ahead and check out the chat just to see if we have any questions from the viewers. So first one I see here, where'd it go? Ah, there it is. From Ken Adlam. Ken, thank you so much for stopping by tonight and asking your questions. So he asks, what's your favorite mod, map, and farming vehicles?
And thanks for asking the question. Are we talking 25? We talking 22? What genre of farm sim are we talking about?
You know what? Let's go with 22 because there'll be kind of a broader spectrum available to us.
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna pull up. I've got to load this up. Right at the end, there was a 16x map that came out. Now, don't get mad at me. I understand the console and PC debate. I absolutely understand it. I started on console, so I know the struggles of not getting cool like maps or all the coolest mods. But I'm loading it up. I'm looking here, I'm going over, stand by. I'm going to tell you exactly what my favorite map was. Okay, here we go. I've got a save game of it out there on my itch.io page, and it is Hubbard, Nebraska.
I've heard of
Hubbard,
that one.
Nebraska. It's a 16. It is a huge map. I mean, it takes some horsepower to run on a computer. Texar Gaming is the person that made it. I tried to open it in Giants Editor. I don't even know how they made this map. It's so big and has so much detail in it. But it's really, really good. I put a train on it. So Jay Weezy, I think one of the best mods that came out, and you'll laugh at me because it's a train mod. It's not a true, it's a farming mod. But he came out with an entire train pack right at the end of 22. We're talking diesel locomotives, steam engines, grain cars, hoppers, tank cars, tracks, tunnels, you name it. And they were fully functional mods, so you could get in them and operate them. They were Mac and PC only. And I put an entire train network on Hubbard, and I released the save game on it, and it's out there. Was a very, very cool map. Now, if we look at my favorite, let's say, console mods, because again, I get it. People complain all the time, and they're like, console players just buy a PC. Well, not everybody can afford a PC. PCs are expensive. The consoles are great. They get the job done. You're still able to have fun with it. I get the frustration. Alma was a beautiful, beautiful map. I think one of the best in 22 as far as an American style map that had rolling hills. What I like the most is an area, a map that isn't flat. I don't like just a flat map. I like imperfections. I like to see imperfections because that's real life. Alma was spectacular. It really, really was.
Yeah.
And then it's... Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna just agree with you. Yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful map. Celebuki did an amazing job.
Yeah, very, 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 very good job. And then as far as vehicles, so again, I like John Deere. I'm a John Deere fan. I'm sorry.
How dare you?
I know, right? So I'm looking here now. I'm going through my itch.io page, and that's where I get a lot of my mods. I don't know where others get their mods. The reason why I like itch, and I'll stand by this, it's coming from the modder. So yes, they could be taken from another modder and published, but they, for the most part, are. I don't know. Did you hear that ding come through my computer? I don't know if you did or not.
I didn't catch one. No.
Okay, well that's good. Someone is hopefully they're watching. They're watching right now, but they were texting me and it was coming through my computer. So I'm going to turn that off just in case it goes through. There we go. Or what we're talking about mods, itch.io, because it's coming from the modder. Whereas the other sites, you don't know where they're coming from. Many of them are uploaded elsewhere. Gosh, what would be my favorite mod? There's so many.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many. Alma being the map, the mod. So Northwest mods and edits did a very, very good job with their Peterbilt 379 and their Super Duty, the Ford Super Duty. And again, this is PC. Very, very nice job with those. On the console side, the first version got a lot of negativity, but the Ford F350, the version 2, was so much better. And I can't
Okay.
remember the modder from that. I'm going to have to Google it right now. F350. Who did that one? Do you remember?
I don't know.
It was the Lizard F350, and it was from Agritano.
Aha.
Agritano. So the first one, the version 1, it didn't stop. It had no brakes. But version 2 was very, very good.
Nice. All of those are very respectable, and I can definitely agree with some of those. All right, so I'm not seeing any more questions here in the chat, so let's go ahead and move on to our second segment. This is called the
Okay.
Meat and Potatoes, emphasis on potatoes. This is the section of the interview where we go ahead and dive a little bit deeper into who you are as a creator. So,
Yeah.
the first question I have is you mentioned that you started in FS19,
hmm
and I presume that was more of a kind of the content creation side. Am I correct in assuming that?
Um, Not necessarily. I think my 19 tour was mainly seeing the game and going, "Oh, let me try this." It was on console. And I didn't know how to operate the game. I remember getting into the game and going, "What in the heck do you do?" Like, okay, I know I got a farm, but what do I do? It wasn't until 22 that I started getting into content creation.
Okay.
And it wasn't until I switched from console to PC that I really got into content creation.
Okay, that makes sense. The one thing I will say is that the PC version, with all the kind of mods and additions that you can put in there, really makes it to where you can make some really, really crisp and clean edits for
hmm
content creation.
hmm
Like being able to remove
It
the
is.
HUD and all that kind of stuff is
Yes.
definitely a really nice thing, in my opinion. So you started playing in FS19. Was there any kind of, and you also mentioned how you really didn't get into the kind of mod hub and things like that, where you're kind of checking out the mods that were available at that time. At least right away is how I understood what you were saying.
Hmm
Was there a map that you were mainly kind of focused on playing for 19?
No, no, and not to like shoot 19 down, but it was so I didn't know what to do. I just remember using the base map. Um, and so if you remember, console on 19 was really, really tough because you had the slot count.
Yep.
And the slot count got significantly easier in 22. Although, if you remember, there was an update in 22 for console that destroyed us, console players, because it took the slot count from like very high to very low, and all of us were like maxed out right away on day one.
Yep.
So I couldn't, you, it was like you downloaded one map in 19 and you were almost at your maximum slot count. Um, but I was fortunate in that I got into 19 right as 22 was coming out. So I very quickly went over to 22. I tried going back to 19 after I learned a little how to actually play the game. And it was that slot count that just I'm like, I cannot do what I want to do.
I can definitely understand that. And I don't know about you, but me personally, I have a very, very hard time when something like the latest and greatest is out, like here in 25. I have a very hard time picking up the controller and being like, you know what? Let me go see 22. Let me go relive the
Hmm.
experience there.
Hmm.
Do you have kind of the same thing, or?
Yes. So 25 has gotten a lot, some bad raps behind it. I mean, I've read some really terrible. I don't agree. I think it's really the change graphically from 22 to 25 is spectacular.
Yeah.
The weather mod, the way water is now portrayed on surfaces and mud and the ground deformation, as simple as those seem, they were an absolute game changer coming from 22 to 25. You go back to 22, you just don't have that immersion. Now, I would say that if 25 never had any mods, so like 25 came out and you never got any mods, fortunately, I would have to probably shift back over to 22 because with the mods, it makes it so much more enjoyable. Um, does that make sense?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, and I would likely do the same thing. Like if mods weren't a thing for 25, I would definitely roll back to 22 because
Yeah.
the the game, the backbone is amazing. You know what Giants produce and puts out there is awesome. But yeah, the modders are what make it special.
Yep.
They are what really kind of drive it to the next level.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what's one thing that you never expected when starting your channel? And some examples that I give, uh, this sense of community, any unexpected backlash, things like that.
I didn't expect people, viewers, to enjoy a. I started doing I'll build your farm. And I need to re up that for 25. I haven't started that again for 25. It's basically where I said, "Hey, I love to build in the map editor. Send me pictures of your farm. If you've got a farm that you maybe pass by daily and you really enjoy, send it to me, and I'll try to build it in the map editor." And I did like 5 or 6 of those in 22, and I was really surprised at how the viewers enjoyed that. And I think it was because, again, we're so focused on like waiting for the next mod to come out or the next map to come out. And I was able to I took No Man's Land, one of the, in my opinions, because again, I like to create things, best maps in 22 to just build on. That was from Alien Gym.
Mm-hmm.
And I would take No Man's Land, take a little section out of it, and I would build these farms that were people. It wasn't the whole map, but we'd do it. I'd do a little, a little video preview of it, and I was really shocked, and I was happy to show some of these smaller farms and bigger farms, really all size types of farms, but they were real farms of real people across the United States.
That's pretty cool. I never even thought of like somebody out there like just kind of doing that kind of thing. That's actually, like I said, it's really cool. I'll have to go to your channel and check some of that stuff out. So, would you consider Farming Simulator to be your favorite game? But if not, what is your favorite game?
Simulator consumes most of my gaming time. Um, it is my favorite game, but what I will say is I have ebb and flow. There are times where I'm like, oh, man, I'm a little tired of this. I got to stop for just a little bit. Or you get bored. I put a video out yesterday. I'm doing a series on small town USA. It's a very small map that I created, um, and I'm stuck in winter. So it's January, February, March, and there's just nothing to do.
Hmm.
There's stuff that you can do, like you could still feed the animals. You could, maybe go, cut ditches, but there's nothing to do. You could have productions, um, and I think that would be an area where I think improvement in the game could really, really happen. Is just in the character development, the immersion, things to do in the game. And I get that there's limitations, and Giants has limitations, and they've done a really nice job, but you can get bored. So when I stop it, I don't really have any other games to go to and play. Um, but if I had to, and money were no object, but it always is, I
Hmm.
would love to build a actual driving simulator. I think that would be really, really cool.
That would be cool. I'll agree with you there. So we've established that you have a family, that you work full time, and that you do the content creation as kind of the end of the day kind of stress reliever slash content creation kind of thing.
Hmm.
How much would you say that of your day consists of playing and making farm sim content?
Oh gosh, I don't want to know. That's scary, actually. Have you ever looked at your stats in the game?
I purposely avoid it
Yeah,
because I'm afraid to look
yeah.
personally.
Um, so again, it depends upon my mindset and kind of the mood that I'm in, the day that I've had, or the other, the family schedule, what I've got going on. Um, I feel guilty at times. If I do put too much time into it, if I'm away from the family, everything that I do is kind of downstairs in our house, and if the family's upstairs, I don't. If I'm cognizant of it and I'm like, oh wow, I'm spending a little too much time on this right now. I need to cut back just a touch. Um, but when I do get into a zone, I mean, I can put hours into it. Like I said early on, I mean, you can look up and it's 3 a.m. and you're going, oh my gosh, I need to go to bed. So
Yeah,
no, I intentionally don't look at the number. I don't track the hours, um, because of that very reason.
I'm laughing because I completely understand and I do the same thing. It's one of those that I would almost want to be oblivious, and as long as I'm not, taking the time away from the family, then yeah, the amount of hours I'd just rather just not know.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Now, I will say this, my wife is amazing. Supports what I do. She has her hobbies. I support what she does as well. And I think we both know that like it's important for people to have a hobby and to do something that they really enjoy. But I will say this, if it were ever to intrude, um, I would have to stop. I would have to walk away. I would have to.
Yep.
Period. No other details given.
No, I completely understand, and yeah, I would be right there with you. It's one of those that if this ever started interfering with the real life, wife, kids, job, anything like that, sorry, y'all, real life comes first.
Yeah, and I think you could stop. You can cut it back. It doesn't mean you can't ever come back to it ever again.
Exactly.
You can always come back to it. In fact, there was a period in time where there was a couple of months where I didn't post anything. And I was fearful, thinking, oh my gosh, is anyone going to watch my videos again? And fortunately, they did. And I appreciate that. Thank you. Um, so, again, since we're not doing this professionally, you can pause if you have to. And being in a better headspace, creating something that you enjoy, again, your community is going to notice that, in my opinion. They're going to know that you're having fun with it. You're going to produce better content.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And we had mentioned earlier just how amazing the farm sim community is, and we were mainly talking about the other creators and modders, mappers, things like that, but not just the community, behind the scenes, but in front of the scenes, the viewers and all that stuff. They are amazing. Like I said, I've been a part of several communities throughout my life, and I've never been a part of one that's been so willing to one, be so accommodating, but two, just be so open and inviting and being willing to be, I guess, open is the best
Hmm.
way that I
Yep.
can describe it.
Yeah.
It's incredible, absolutely incredible. So big
Well,
shout out to everyone out there.
yeah, and we mentioned, the game isn't wouldn't be what it is without the modders. The community and the content creation, we wouldn't be anywhere without the viewers. Period. Uh,
Exactly.
I mean, there's nothing else that can be said about that. That is one thing that I appreciate so much is you're giving your time to watch something that I've created or that you've created. The stuff what I've made, it might not be that great, but you're still giving me your time. We're all limited on time. It's one commodity that is very limited. So the fact that you're willing to sit down in front of your computer and watch something that I've done, and I really hope you like it. I mean, that means a ton, and that's the one of the few things that keeps us doing this.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely, 100% agree with that. So we established some of your favorites, your
Hmm.
maps, your mods. Um, what are some of your least favorite that you've come across?
Oh,
Let's
my
let's again
least
let's
favorite.
let's go back to 22 because again, there's a bigger pool to pick from.
Yeah. I am so I'm kind of a meat and potatoes guy. I do a lot of corn. I do a lot of wheat. Cannot stand. I've never planted a potato or harvested a potato in my life in this game. Um, I've never touched the like the grapes or the olives. I maybe have put a few on a map for visual effect, but I've never touched them. I've never given them a shot. I do not have the patience nor the hand-eye coordination for forestry. I cannot do it. I'm terrible at it. Those I've seen some maps that are set up just for forestry though, and good golly, they're pretty impressive. And the time that players put into it to do it accurately and like as real as possible, kudos to you on that. I can't do it. I can't do it. So that'd probably be it. Again, I don't. I'm trying to do things more realistically with forestry. So like right now in small town, I need to build my home, and I will say this as well. I'm terrible. I'll build something. I don't know if you do this as well. I'll build something, and then I'll start modifying it. So like I might start the episode like series number one, and it's in configure like a specific configuration. By the time we've got to like the fourth or fifth video, It's like, well, that barn is different, and that wasn't there, and this was change. I change things around all the time. I'm terrible at that. But I
Oh
need to
yeah.
build a house because I built my first map on this, or built my first farm on this map. Built a home, beautiful home. I had horses. I had everything. It was perfect. And then for whatever reason, I said I don't like this anymore, so I redid it. I don't have a home. I need to build a home, but I'm going to try very hard to properly get rid of trees because where I want to put the house, I've got a lot of trees, and I'm going to try to cut them down properly and not use. Now, in 22 with Easy Dev, you could keybind basically the delete button to your left mouse key. In my particular instance, I made it my center mouse key, so you could just walk up to a tree, hit the center mouse key, and the tree was gone immediately. You could clear a whole forest in like a minute. We don't
Nice.
have that yet in 25. But even when it does come out, I'm going to try my hardest. I will probably fail, though.
Well, I will wish you good luck on that.
Thank you.
And you know what? I will say that it's you were saying earlier how it's very much noticeable for the people who are viewing content to see, the times in which you are enjoying the most of what is that you're doing, but they also can notice the times where you're struggling and the times where things are,
Mm.
but those oftentimes, what at least experiences that I've had up until this point in my YouTube career, I often find that's when I get some of the best feedback. Is
Oh,
like,
yeah.
hey, I noticed that this is something you don't do that often. I might not do it very well, or they may leave a comment and they're like, but keep it up. Keep up the work because
Yeah.
eventually you'll
Yeah.
get good at it.
Or when you just mess something up. So I used to be very conscious about, if I didn't do something right, I would stop, delete that recording, go back in and start over again. Now I just kind of let it happen. Like something tips over, something gets stuck, something doesn't work. What the heck? I think it's interesting. You can kind of be in the role play mindset, and maybe you've got a story that you're working on, and then something goes wrong. You kind of snap out of it, and like, all right, well, this is the game, so this is a kind of a bug that I've found. Like, I cannot get this piece of equipment to attach to that tray. It will not work. I don't know why. I have no clue why. Or it's flipped over, in a pond, and I'm going to turn on super strength, and I'm going to have to pick this thing up out of the pond because if I don't, we're going to be sitting here for an hour while I'm trying to connect like winches and things to it to get it out of this pond. It's not, you're not going to enjoy that.
Hmm.
So yeah, have fun with it.
Well, and yeah, that's the thing is, it's it's amazing and how forgiving that the viewers can be when they know that something just didn't go quite to plan.
Hmm. Hmm.
One of my favorite quotes is from a book I read back in high school. The book is called "Of Mice and Men," and
Okay.
the quote is, "The best laid plans of mice and men often go astray."
Mm. Hmm. Hmm.
So it was just one of those that kind of just stuck with me. And I'm not a big
Hmm.
book reader, but that one in particular has stuck with me my whole life, practically. Like I said, it was back in high school when I read it.
It was high school. Okay, yeah.
And
Interesting note. I had a high school teacher, English teacher as well. He had a saying. His saying was "Semper Gumby." He had a picture of Gumby, the animated character,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and the word "semper" on it. And he always, everyone asked, "What does that mean? What does that mean?" We'd say, "Well, what do you think it means?" And what his the meaning behind it was based around the term "semper fidelis," always be, semper Gumby meaning always be flexible because Gumby is flexible.
Okay.
So that always stuck with me, Semper Gumby.
I like that. I like that a
Yeah,
lot.
I mean, it was high school, right?
Yeah, yeah. And what's funny is I'm very familiar with Semper Fidelis because I've
Mm-hmm.
got actually a few of my friends and family are in the military, but one in particular I'm thinking of. He was a former Marine, and that was the something that he would always kind of tell me about. Is
Yes,
the Semper
sir.
Fi.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that was yeah, that kind of hit a chord with me. So I like that. Let's see. All right, so here's a question for you. If you could pick any map throughout
Mm-hmm.
all of Farming Simulator history,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter whether it's actually going to be coming out or anything like that. What map would you want to come to FS25?
Mm. Okay. I would love to see a Western style cattle ranch. And I know we had gosh, it was Elk Mountain. We had Elk Mountain in 22, which was really, really good, spectacular map. That was PC again. Forgive me, console players. Elk Mountain modding made that map, but I'd love to see something that is based maybe in the, I don't know, the Texas, New Mexico. It would be different. That would probably be based around cattle more than anything. Maybe you could do some type of grassland work on it. I think that'd be really really interesting.
Gotcha. And of the maps that have been announced so far for coming out to FS25, uh, is there any of them that you're looking forward to in particular?
Sadly, no, not yet. Um, but now, what's the pool we're pulling from? I guess would be the question because I know there have been a number of modders talking about porting things over. We know Alma's coming over, so yes, excited about that. That's great. Um, but what else is out there?
Ooh, I mean, goodness, of course I'm gonna blank right now. I mean, we just recently got Calmsden. That was one that
I
I was.
always get I always get stuck on that one because I tried to play it. You can't have American equipment on that map. Period. It's not an American map, so obviously you should not have an American equipment. But you cannot run a big 8R with LSWs on it on that map. It just doesn't work. Period. You're stuck.
Yep.
Cobblestones and walls. You're not going anywhere.
Oh, especially now that
Um,
they've got traffic on it.
yeah, yeah, I know. Now I should probably play one of those maps. I don't know why I always get stuck on an American style map. It's probably because of my preference for equipment. Um, and I just know it's not. Again, you're not getting down those roads.
Mm-hmm. No, and it's funny in how as a content creator, and I don't know if you've experienced this in your time creating content, but there's been several occasions where I've purposely pushed myself outside of my comfort zone
Yeah,
to
yeah, yes,
be
yes,
able to make something that I'm not comfortable with, and
yeah,
it's one of those where I feel like when I do that, it's oftentimes those are the ones where I receive the least amount of views because it's very obvious that I'm not comfortable with what I'm doing.
hmm hmm
Um, so, for an example, in FS22, I did a series where everything was in first person view. Everything was in
That's
first person.
that's tough. That's
Yes.
very tough.
And this is obviously back before the guidance system, the GPS, where it gave you the lines to just kind of
Yeah.
automatically line you up and all that stuff. So I'm sitting there and I'm with it was an Alma, Missouri. That's
Okay.
what it was.
Yeah.
So you're dealing with those big farms, those big fields and stuff like that, and running around with giant harvesters with the 40, 50 foot headers on them. Oh my goodness, I couldn't tell you the number of times where I'd be going around. It's like, oh, I think I'm doing pretty good, and then all of a sudden I have like a big old, chunk of big old chunk of field that didn't get touched because
That
I
you
just wasn't
didn't, yeah,
over
you
far
didn't
enough.
cut. Yep. Yeah, you did. Well, and there's no we don't have depth perception
Yep.
on the game. You know, when you're playing, um, with the screen in front of you, you just don't have that, so you can't tell where the header is. You can't tell, um, are you gonna get through that fence? Are you gonna hit that barn? It's just not possible. Um, and I went out to I'm fortunate to have some family that does have a small dairy farm in Iowa, and I went out there a couple of years ago, and I try to go out every year because I love it. And to actually get in real equipment and drive it, and you realize like, yeah, it's a much better experience when you're really in the cab of a real piece of equipment.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I'm sure it's made a little bit easier, a little bit better when you've got the more kind of fancy setups when you got like the steering wheels, the pedals, and stuff like that for like PCs. Um, like me, being again a console player, you don't get that sense of feedback when you're
Mm-hmm.
using
Mm-hmm.
joysticks and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's one of those where you can do really well with the joysticks. You can do really well with like a keyboard and mouse and all that stuff. I don't know, but it's one of those like you're saying. There's no depth perception. There's
No
no
depth perception.
uh,
Yeah.
there's all those things that you would have in like a real life scenario where you'd be able to make better judgments in how you're driving and how you would handle a specific turn or a specific inlet to a field. All those different kind of things. It's definitely a different beast when going about
And you
that way.
you did one that was all in first person, which that's tough. That's
Yeah.
extremely tough.
Well, and working with like the front loaders and the telehandlers, like that honestly was one of the hardest parts in my experience because you can't see like where the pallet forks line up and all that stuff.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
being on console, I don't get like the leveling mods. Like I've
Oh,
seen one
yeah,
of those
yeah, yeah,
mods where it
yeah.
actually tells you the pitch and angle of like the front loaders and
Oh,
all
the
that stuff.
forks.
Yep, of
Yeah.
the forks. So, you don't get that kind of stuff. You're basically like, okay, is it straight? Is it not straight? And
And
yeah,
that's where, so run into this all the time where, I can get frustrated, and I've got the benefit of just hitting a key and saying, forget this, I'm turning super strength on. And in the PC world, I mean, currently what we have right now, I mean, it's simple option key on my keyboard, and I can pick up anything I want. So what happens is I've got a greenhouse that's producing fruit, and I roll the pickup up with a gooseneck on the back, and yeah, I brought the skid steer over, and I do like the first pallet with the skid steer, and I'm just messing it up, and I'm like, you know what, forget this. Put the skid steer back on the trailer, super strength, option key, pick them up, drop them on. Don't even get me started on bales. I have to do that with bales.
I completely understand. Thankfully, we are blessed on consoles that have the liftable pallets and all that stuff.
Okay,
So,
you can do liftable pallets, good.
yep.
And do you have
So,
auto load? Do you have auto load on any trailers?
oh, we do have the auto load bale trailers. Yes, we don't have
Okay,
anything
you can
for
do
like the
that.
pallets just yet.
Not yet. Okay. Okay.
But with that liftable pallets, we are able to lift up all the pre kind of pre-made stuff, like anything that's
Okay.
not from base game. That stuff doesn't work, but hopefully that'll get integrated
Yeah.
down the line kind of thing.
Now, what system are you playing on?
I'm on an Xbox, so
Okay.
it's the
S
Series
or
X.
Series X?
Hmm.
Okay. Nice. So you got, I was playing on a Series S. So the base system. I didn't have all the great graphics. I didn't have the graphics processing that the X had. Um, I'm glad you're on the X. Have you had any crashing? Have you had any of the crashing that folks have been complaining about?
I haven't experienced anything like that. I've been fortunate enough not to have to deal with that so far. And let me, make sure I knock on my,
Yeah, I'm
ooh,
gonna knock on
knock
wood
on my.
for you. Absolutely.
Yeah, no. Thankfully, I've not experienced that, but I've heard so many people saying, "Oh, it's terrible. It crashes. It this is that," and I feel terrible for them. It's one of those that thankfully I don't have to go through it, but I certainly sympathize for anybody who does.
Hmm.
So before 25 was released, we got a whole string of you know content that was coming out from Giants. They were telling us, "Oh, well, be on the lookout for this, release video, this little map, or this trailer, this, that." All this kind of information that was slowly but surely kind of being peddled out to us.
Hmm.
Of like those early releases when we were starting to get all this streams of information, what was one of the features that you were like you saw it and you're like, "Oh, that I okay, I'm on board
Yes,
with this."
yes. Ground deformation and the fog. I think the lighting changes really are what got me. I think some of the early videos, I'll be candid, I did not care to do rice. It just didn't interest me. I'm sure some are very interested in it, and that's great. Didn't interest me at all. But seeing the different equipment finally react differently to different ground types, I thought was awesome. Snow is so much better in 25
Yes.
versus 22. I mean, in 22, when you would drive on snow, you would hear it, but there would be zero deformation to that particular layer.
Yep.
And now you have true, you see your tire tracks. And so I posted a video early on where I thought I was stuck. I was in the international Eagle, and I had a hopper trailer on, and I was coming up. I was on Riverbend, and I did do console command, added a bunch of snow. I thought I'd gotten stuck. A lot of people, said, "Well, we think your trailer landing gear is what was holding you up," and I realized I didn't really look at that. Maybe it was, but just recently, did another video where I have started making my roads out of arable land. So I literally, instead of just painting gravel or dirt, I have a little of that, but I'm taking my little subcompact tractor, the 4110 John Deere, with a very small tiller on the back, and I'm using the Creative Field mod, and I'm making all of my roads and really the farmyard out of field land, so it's tillable land. And what I'm getting out of that is you're getting all of the added deformation of the ground. With the new realistic weather mod, you're now getting actual moisture content in the ground that's changing. So when it rains, you're stuck. I mean, you need to be in a four-wheel drive vehicle in your farmyard to go anywhere. If you haven't tried that, I highly recommend you give it a try. So again, just take anything that can create a field and make your drive areas arable land.
I never thought about that, but that's actually a really good idea, especially like you said, because of ground deformation, because of the moisture that we can get all the mud effects and all that stuff.
Yep.
That's actually brilliant. I would have never have thought of that.
Yeah, it works really well, and you get a couple of added benefits to it as well. You get rocks that pop up. If you Did I lose you? Where'd you go? You still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, the screen just went bloop.
Oh,
I must have hit something, and the entire Discord went like off the screen. I thought I might have lost you.
oh no, no, no.
Good. So you get rocks. Rocks form. You get weeds. Weeds will grow. So you've got to actually tend to your farmyard a little more. Highly recommend it. And you can still go in and paint. You could paint grass in certain areas. It doesn't have to be all, arable land. you can still turn it into add some detail to it, but it changes the way you drive on your game significantly.
Oh, and I could certainly see that, especially when you're talking like if you have semi trucks or if you have like you were saying earlier the international. Uh, yeah, I could definitely see that being a whole new animal to have to deal
Yep.
with.
So I was just in the game. I had a 4440 John Deere. So what would that be? Mid 80s Soundguard tractor, 2-wheel drive tractor, pulling a mixing wagon to take over and feed some animals. And I was just testing some things out. Hooked it up before I did this to the farmyard. You could drive anywhere you want, no issues. Afterwards, loaded it up, couldn't, just tire spin, could not get up the hill. You could physically, you can see where the mixer wagon was significantly heavier than the tractor pulling it. So the ground deformation in the back was deep, very deep, whereas the ground deformation up by the tractor, the 4440, was significantly less. And you could see the tires were spinning. The front tires weren't spinning because again, it was a 2-wheel drive tractor.
Hmm.
I couldn't go anywhere. Nothing. So I had to rethink what I was doing and moved the 4440 off to do something else, and I brought in a 4-wheel assist tractor to actually pull that mixer wagon.
I mean, like I said, that's awesome. I would have never thought to actually. You know what? What's funny is that I did something similar to that on FS22, specifically No Man's Land. And this is back way back before I was creating content, where I was just making roads based on just getting the cultivator and just kind of making fields and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. So I don't know why it didn't occur to me with all these new features. Like, hey, you ought to try that for.
Give it a shot.
Yeah, that's a really cool idea.
I think you will like it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So I try to keep this show around 2 hours to try and be
Okay.
respectful of time and stuff like that.
Yeah, we're right at it.
Um,
2 hours went by already. That's crazy.
I know, right? If you want, we can continue. I do have several other questions, but I'm going to leave that
Keep
completely up
going.
to you.
Whatever you want. I'm happy.
All right, all right. So we'll keep on going for a little bit longer. So we discussed, a couple of features that you were really excited about when you first saw them coming out in the kind of announcements for FS25. Now, what were some of those features that you were probably initially excited for, but then kind of soured on fairly quickly?
Um, so I mentioned that fog was awesome. Now I don't love it as much. Well, because it completely shuts you down.
Yeah.
You don't have you can't do anything. So when you get into certain areas where the fog is just overpowering, you can't do anything. So where it is absolutely beautiful, especially if you're running a higher end graphics system, so you're getting those light rays coming through trees and reflecting off of water. It's beautiful to look at, but it's impossible to play. There is and I don't believe it is for, and again, console players, don't hate me. It's the real weather mod that exists right now. It's on the in-game mod hub. I don't think it's for PC or for console. I could be wrong though. Let's
No, so
check.
it's not currently available, but I've been hearing that it might become available.
I could see where it could become available because it's a script mod, but it's a script mod that's utilizing all the existing scripts in the game. It's not modifying, it's not changing things. It's just creating more of what's already there. So, for example, you get snow, but instead of 6 inches of snow, and I guess it's done in I can't remember what the unit of measure is done for snow. You get a lot more of it. You get a
Hmm.
blizzard. You get a tornado. You get more rain. Fog comes in, and it is a fog warning and it is like maximum level of fog for the longest duration possible. And it popped up, and I'm like, I can't do anything with this. Like, it's cool, it's neat, but it came up and said like there was an 8-hour fog warning. I can't do that. I had to turn it off and move on.
See, so what's funny and the reason why I chuckled so hard is I've done this show now almost about a dozen episodes. I'm rapidly approaching that, and
Nice.
I've asked that question almost to every single person, and without a shadow of a doubt, almost every single one of them has said fog. Almost
Fog. Yeah.
every single one of them. And it's funny because it's one of those, I was the same exact way. And if I was asked that question, I give the same exact answer. It was an amazing kind of feature when we first saw it, but after kind of getting used to it and having it actually available to us now, it's one of those, I could take it or leave it. And you're right. It's one of those where if it's in the wrong area at the wrong time, kind of thing, it completely shuts you down. You
Yeah.
can't do anything in that area.
It's nicer when it's more subtle. So it might be an early morning fog, where it's kind of coming across the field, and that's nice. But I want it to be gone by, full sunup. Get rid of it.
Yep.
And it's interesting too. There are pockets of fog, and when you go in and actually look at a map and you see the variables that you can change for density and height, there's a ton of variables that you can add to change fog. So one of these, like you're driving and there's nothing, but because the fog height is at a certain level, then when you go down, like it becomes just a white out. You can't see anything. And then you come up out of that level on the map, and then everything's fine. And you look kind of back, and it kind of looks like you're on an airplane, like it's clouds in a way. It's a little over. It's a little much. A little much.
I can definitely see that. So, what's one thing that's not in Farming Simulator 25 that that you really wish was?
Two things, if I may.
Let's hear it.
First, character development, health. So I think there is a large area missing with the player, and that is in food. So I would like to see a way where you have to feed yourself. You have to keep yourself healthy. And you think of all the simulator games that are out there, at least the first person style simulators, the player can always get damage. Now, again, I'm going to go into this by saying I have no clue how this is going to happen. I am a pseudo modder. So I feel like there are probably intelligent people that could figure this out, but I'm not that guy. But I would love to see where I have to feed myself, or I have to sleep, or my health gets low. And maybe you do have a family. So the game has always just been a single person, the farmer. We've created these scenarios where there are other people on the farm. You've got the uncle now, Uncle Walter, I think that's who it is. We've got Uncle Walt, he's there, but we don't have a family. It'd be cool to have a family, and you have to tend to your family, go to the grocery store, get food, and bring back to them. And I don't know if that's a. I mean, you think about it, we have to give food to animals in husbandries, and they consume that food and they generate waste. Could there be a way that your farmhouse has a similar requirement for it, where you have to add food to the house, and the house over time consumes that food? I don't know. I think that'd be interesting. It could add a layer to the game.
So there was a map that came out in 22. Oh my goodness, and it's gonna completely slip my mind as to the name of it. I did a series on it, and of course, after I did the series, there was a massive update to the map, and the whole kind of focal point of that map was that you were not necessarily a farmer, but you were more of a city worker. You know,
Okay.
you were responsible for like the contracts and stuff, but the contracts were like mowing, almost exclusively mowing grass around the kind of main stretch of highway that came running from the kind of north east portion of the map and ran, down and around to the southwest portion.
Okay.
So like I said, you're basically a county worker, and in the update they ended up utilizing a lot of the production chains, and what they did is that they made it to where you were responsible for collecting outputs from various different houses. Each house on the map was a kind of production chain, and the outputs from
Okay.
those homes were slurry, trash. So you had like black trash bags
Yep.
and food waste
Okay. Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah.
And for the life of me, I wish I could remember the map name because I want to say it was a map that was made by Gwendol.
Okay.
I think that was the modder's name. I could be wrong about
Okay.
that, but yeah, it was a brilliant map, and it was just one of those where you were saying all that, and it just kind of reminded me of
Yeah.
something very similar to that, but to
Well,
where almost like the front part of that production chain is missing, to where the food would be the production chain going in, and those various outputs would be the ones coming out.
yeah, and I think it could be doable even with the constraints of the existing game,
Mm-hmm.
where your house is a production point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You have to then put in certain things for it to create that waste. You consume it, and then you have to dispose of it. So I saw an interesting mod that came out for 25. It was a trash bin. It was a dumpster, and you could throw stuff in it, and it would just vanish. You could even take it to the point where you have to take your trash to the trash dumpster at maybe the, I don't know, at the municipal building downtown, I don't know, and get rid of it, or it'll pile up. I think that'd be really, really cool. I'd like to see something like that.
So again, that actually reminds me of that map, because another feature that came out with that specific map was recycling. So all
Okay.
throughout the map, you would have these little collectibles, but they weren't like
Okay.
a traditional collectible, like you walk up, click on it, and then it just gives you money kind of thing. What it was is it would actually have like a recycle symbol on it, and you'd pick it
Okay.
up, you throw it into a trailer, you just collect it, you'd haul it to the recycling center, in which you
Okay.
would put it into a dumpster. And
Mm-hmm.
you would then kind of back up to this little, basically like the wood cell trigger at a sawmill, right? You just click on that
Okay.
button, and all of a sudden everything would just sell off.
Okay.
And it just kind of reminds me of it. I wish I could remember that name, because it was a great.
Well,
What was one?
if you're out there and you made that map, let us know.
Yeah,
Or
it's one of
someone
those.
else make something similar.
That's gonna absolutely drive me nuts. Now,
And so the constraints of the game, if you really look at it and you think about how the game plays, it's based around units of measure. Really, everything we do in the game is based around units of measure. So a quantity of something either goes out or comes in or is converted. So you add 1,000 units of water, you add 1,000 units of seed, you add 1,000 units of fertilizer, and then the production chain creates, those 3,000 units coming in creates 1,000 units of a something.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
you've got that back and forth, and then that based upon a time, so the units and then a time measurement. So you've got to keep any like wishes based around those constraints. And I think it could be done. I really, really do. And it would again be and it would allow you to do something during those winter months when there's nothing to do. And
Exactly.
then my second wish, and have you found it? Did you find it?
Actually, I did. I looked it up in the
Okay, what is
background.
it?
So it's a map called New Lands,
Okay,
and
New
it's
Lands.
by Gwendol.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it was
So
22.
that was on 22. Yep. So yeah,
Interesting.
it was one that I ended up doing a series on that one, and of course I did it before all these really awesome updates came out. So I missed out on it. So, but
New
it was
Lands. Okay. Yeah. 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 Gwendol. And that, I mean, four stars, all platforms. That's really cool.
mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, maybe. So here's where you go from that. I think so. The goal of the game is to create more mods. Does someone look at that map and see what Gwendol did and see if that could be then added to or modified or changed to work on a new map potentially. Maybe Gwendol has already done just that, and it merely needs to be brought over and do to a map in 25. I don't know, but I think
Yeah.
that'd be cool.
Oh, that'd be really really cool. Yeah, like I said, it was the whole layout of the map was gorgeous. It was really an awesome map, just full sentence stop, even before the updates. But then you throw
Okay.
in all the updates that came out, obviously later, and it just made it like the next level. You know what I compare it to is, are you familiar with the map Mars the Mission?
No, yes, yes, yes.
So there was a kind of 1.0 version and a 2.0 version. And the 1.0 version, unfortunately, and I don't mean this to be like casting shade or anything like that, but I thought that was a good idea in concept, but it was very poorly executed.
Mm-hmm.
To where it was very kind of stock standard. There wasn't really much special about it or anything like that, but it was one of those like I was interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
But then the version 2.0 came out, and it was an
Was
amazing
really
update.
good.
Everything was customized. Everything was, unique to that map. And not only that, but then there was all these different features that were just kind of laid in throughout the entirety of the map. It was amazing, and it kind of talking like what we were talking about earlier, with the movies portion of the interview, when we were talking about how you prefer those kind of movies where it's, not necessarily reality now, but could be reality in the future kind
Near
of game.
future. Yeah, near future. Yeah.
That's what I kind of felt Mars the Mission turned into, kind of thing.
Okay.
To where it's just one of those, like, because you're on Mars, you're basically
Yeah.
in this huge biome,
Yep.
and you're creating the food, creating the
You're farming.
yeah, you're farming on
Yeah,
Mars, kind
on
of thing.
Mars.
So it was
Yeah,
just one of those, like,
that's
it's a
cool.
really cool concept, and then it just received so much love and attention on the 2.0 update that just made it an incredible map.
I'll have to check it out. I will.
So what was your number two? You were getting ready to
Yeah,
say
my
you were.
number two. So I've got two. I want some care. I want a little bit more realism for the family or the farmer or the how. I think that could be done, and then maintenance items. Um, I I th- I've seen modders create additions to vehicles that are add-ons. So there was a grease add-on. Though we don't have our, and there are some scripted mods that are out currently for vehicle repairs and breakdowns, but there isn't any realism, in my opinion, for maintenance. Farms are always in the shop. When you're not out on the field, you're in the shop fixing things, or making better, or welding something, or modifying something, or changing something. And I would love to see something along those lines. Oil, I mean, even the basics of like oil in the engine. I know that could be added. Again, we look at units of measure of something going in, and being consumed over a period of time. Now it would be very difficult to add now after the fact, because you'd have to like make specific. Every vehicle would have to have it. You have to go in and mod every vehicle to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
But if it were implemented at the initial phase, then modders could, they could make mods around it. But I think that'd be cool. I'd like to be able to change not just go in and be like, okay, it needs maintenance, and I push a button and I pay some money and everything's good now. Like, make me work for it. Make me feel like I'm actually doing something.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that also kind of reminds me of another modder out there. Are you familiar with Zero Orito? I think is how it's pronounced.
Zero Orito. I'm gonna have to check it out. ZFS.
Yeah, so for FS22, he was responsible for making maps like I think it was like BR513. There was also oh goodness, let me check it out. Or Zero Edo, I think is how it's pronounced. Okay, BR163. There was also the interior MS Brazil, Black River, Evergreen Valley, Frontier. Also did Westbridge Hills 22.
Okay. Zero Oito. Zero Oito. I got you.
Correct.
Yep.
Well, they ended up doing for I think they started this. Don't quote me, but I think it started on their Frontier map. And
Okay.
what they ended up doing again is the kind of production chains and stuff. But what they ended up doing was making it to where the mines and stuff that they had on their maps required specific things like maintenance tools to keep up with
Okay.
the mining equipment.
Yeah.
Required like very specific kind of inputs that would kind of add up and make sense, and very similar to like what you're talking about. It wasn't to the point of like to the vehicles, but at a production chain level, it's kind of the precursor to what you're talking about.
Yeah. So I made a mod just recently. I made a generator. It does nothing other than you can get in it and start it. It's a Cat 3406 diesel engine, that I made it so you get in it, you can turn it on, you can rev it up. There's some lights you can push and turn those on. But it would be an electrical generator. Mine does nothing because I don't know, I don't know how to implement it into anything. But it'd be cool for a production to require electricity.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to make electricity for a production to run. You could then, take my generator and it generates electricity, and that is an input into the production chain. The generator requires fuel, so you've got to keep it full of fuel. It runs out of fuel when, again, the tanks are dry, so you've got to continuously keep things in it. It's just adding realistic tasks to keep you going. That would be neat.
Yeah, and like we were saying earlier, because of the modding community that we have here, that's all things that could be in the
Could
future.
absolutely be done. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. And anyone wants to take that generator, you're welcome to do with it as you please. Make it better. Um, Again, I've just got it on my farm. It sits there and makes noise, and I can be like, "Hey, I got a generator." But hey, what if I could? What if the lights on my farm required power, right? And you got to be hooked up to the grid, or you got to generate your power. So you could use my generator.
Oh, see, I love this kind of like almost brainstorming that we're doing here, because it's just one of those that, who knows, maybe one day somebody who watches this may like reach out and be like, hey, can I, and run with it. It's
Yeah,
just,
run with it. Make it work.
yeah, it just,
Make it work.
the prospect behind it is exciting.
Yeah, and I think that's how the game continues to be a success. They've got to innovate. So they have to keep innovating. And I, I don't see any other way. So what is 22 to 25? So 25 to 27? Is that when the next version would in theory be out, or 28?
20, yeah, 28 probably.
Yeah, so what do you add that we don't have in 25? Where do you go from here? And I think you've got to add features. And again, the rice was an added feature, being able to flood the field. That's cool, but it's kind of a niche area. Um, I think they're gonna have to take some bigger steps in whatever next version of the game is.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. So, one of the most recent bit of news that we've got from Giants here recently was the announcement of the DLC.
Yeah,
The first DLC that we're going to get here for FS25. Number one, are you familiar with it?
I've heard about it. I'm pulling it up. We're gonna see what it is. Candidly, the DLCs have been a little hit or miss. I'll be honest with you.
Oh,
Looking at it right now.
absolutely.
Oh, it's Nexat. It's the Nexat device. Okay.
Correct. So, I personally am really excited about this. And the reason being is because, again, I'm a console player. This specific mod came out to the mod hub for FS22. But the problem is that I'm a console player. So one
Yeah.
of the things, like you were mentioning earlier, slots are very, very important.
Yep.
They were certainly more important in years past, but what's now the kind of new importance for console players, at least from my perspective, is the fact of space on a hard drive. Space on your
Mm-hmm.
console.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So on FS22's version, they had the main driving unit, the main kind of tractor, as a single download, and then they had all the various implements that could attach to it
Okay.
as separate installations and downloads. And when everything was added up, when everything was taken into account, it was hundreds upon hundreds of megabytes. It was a huge, huge, huge thing for all the various implements and all the various things that could go with it. So,
Mm-hmm.
as a console player with very limited room and all that stuff, especially towards the latter end of FS22, which is when it came out, it was one of those that I really desperately wanted to play it, but couldn't because of the restrictions that were in place on my specific console, and
Yep.
having to be able to do the map tours and all that kind of stuff that I was doing for the channel. So all that to be kind of a long-winded way of asking, what is your opinion on the upcoming DLC?
Hmm. It doesn't interest me as much, only because I, I the piece of equipment doesn't interest me. Um, it's neat. It's very, very cool. And for those that don't know what it is, it's the Nexat system. It's a very, very wide cutting device. Completely different from any type of harvester that you would see, a traditional combine harvester. Some have argued what it's the next, well, Nexat. It's the next wave of how farmers will cult or harvest land. Um, I think it's neat, but I'd like to see more in a DLC. Um, and that's kind of a cop out answer. I know. I might be disappointing you. I'm sorry.
No, not at all. It's one of those where Number one, we all have opinions. We all have ways of, you know, thinking about certain, things that going on, and that's fine.
Hmm.
There's nothing wrong with anybody having an opinion about whatever it is. I'm personally excited because it was one of those that I would love to have taken advantage of it in 22,
In
but
22, yeah,
but now I can take advantage of it in 25 and not have to worry about it taking up any of my storage
all the
space.
space. Yeah, that
So
is true. I get
that's
that. I get
that's the
that.
particular reason why I'm excited about it. Now, here's the thing is I might try it one time and be
Hmm.
like, okay, it was fun, not worth it. Now, what I do kind of like about the whole system is that it's a kind of all-in-one kind of unit. So
It
it's the
is.
it's the main tractor unit, kind of thing, but then everything that you could use to maintain your farm is attachable to that one unit
Hmm.
itself. So
Hmm.
it has sprayers, it has cultivators, it has plows,
Yeah.
it has seeders and planters and all these different attachments and all these different configurations that are available for this one specific unit. So it's just kind of a different approach in a different way. Now, one thing I could definitely see as being a kind of negative portion about this is we've got the current system of, repairs, and repairs get
Hmm.
very, very expensive very, very quickly,
Hmm.
especially depending on what kind of game mode you play on and all that stuff.
That's
Now,
true.
this being a all-in-one kind of unit, you're going to have to make repairs to that tractor, and because that one tractor is basically doing the job of every single implement on the farm, to where you could potentially diversify and have different tractors doing different jobs and all that kind of different stuff, and utilizing them less and therefore having to fix them less. I could see that kind of getting old very, very quickly because of the constant state of repair that you're going to have to take it in for.
Well, and what's so looking at it, so it's $10 DLC unless you've bought the Game Pass.
Hmm.
That's okay. It's a little spicy, but okay. But now let's look at the cost of the actual vehicle though in real life. I tend to shift back to like, for better or for worse, realism. Um, it's a $1.3 million piece of equipment.
Wow.
The Nexat unit itself. Now I'm just reading this. I did a very quick search on here, and again, the numbers might not be completely right, but nearest makes no difference. The total price jumps to $2.75 million when you start adding all of the pieces of equipment into it. Um, who's going to run that? I mean, if we look in real life here in the United States, um, what farm's buying those?
The
That's
big
a lot of
old
money.
Yeah, big old mega farms that
Yeah,
have.
mega farms. Yeah, sure, very, 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 very much so.
Hmm.
Um, I'm probably gonna, if I'm doing it, I can't afford that.
That's
You
one of
know?
those. You know what? Here's an idea. There's a lot of creators out there do challenges and stuff like that.
Yeah, they do.
Um,
$0 to whatever.
0 to millions and all that
Yep.
stuff. Here's the next challenge. Anybody out there who likes it can take it. Zero to next at.
Yeah. So I've done some videos on prices, and I've mentioned that prices just they it's so easy to go through $1 million, so easy to go through $2 million just buying
Hmm.
stuff. And then you look at the prices of things, and you look at the real life prices of things, and you think of farmers that are out there, you know, really tilling the land, how much money they have into this equipment. It's amazing. And it goes back to our initial conversation of liking to fix things. So I like to be able to fix things.
Hmm.
There is no way that Uncle Walter, who's in the game, is going to be able to, pull out his tool set and work on the next ad.
Yeah.
It's not happening. Not happening.
No, I 100% agree. Yeah, that's definitely going to be one of those specialty equipment you're taking to the dealer every time.
Yeah. Yeah, so my excitement for a DLC was when we got um uh precision farming. Precision farming, I really enjoyed that. Again, it added realism to it.
Same here.
Um I like to see DLC maps that come out. What was the map where you I didn't love all the things you had to do on it, but I liked the layout of it. It was along the coast. It was kind of a northwestern style U.S. map where you a lot of
Oh,
logging.
Silver Run.
Um, Silver Run. I didn't play all of the things that you could do on it, but I loved the terrain of that map. I thought that was really pretty.
Oh yeah,
Those are
yeah.
the things. Those are the things I enjoy.
I gotcha. So when you play Farming Simulator, do you do a lot of the contract work?
No, I don't. In fact, when I play, I don't do a lot of contract work, and I also don't do a lot of productions.
Okay.
My favorite style of play is what I call farm the map. That's where you, typically one farm, and this is how I've been able to be content with some of the base game maps, some of the smaller maps. That's why I loved No Man's Land for so long. It wasn't a big map. It wasn't a 4x map. Wasn't a the 16x map that we talked about earlier, notwithstanding. But I do one farm the map. So the goal is you build your farm and you farm everything on the map. Minimal productions. Try to sustain yourself. And you can make a smaller map, so a base map, a 2x style map, feel like a really big farm if you do it that way.
Mm-hmm.
They also run very well. So I will tell you this, if you play a map that doesn't have a ton of productions on it, doesn't have a ton of stuff on it to begin with, they run in the game significantly better. Higher frame rates, better graphics, just better efficiency. When you start really loading the game down with stuff, it's when I have experienced some of the biggest hiccups.
I gotcha. That's yeah, no, that makes sense. So what I was leading into with that the contracts question was what are your favorites and least favorites? So I'll kind of modify this ever so
Okay.
slightly. So
Modifying.
what would you consider to be your favorite job around the farm?
Mm. Favorite job around the farm. And tinkering around the farm doesn't count because like I said, I'm always changing things all the time. I like to mow. Like kind of goes back to the whole mowing thing. Some of the early content creators that I always watched, they were always like landscaping companies. I'm starting this landscaping company. I always, again, it was nice. I like to be able to just mow my grass. So mowing ditches and just keeping the farm looking nice. That would be it.
I gotcha. And then the opposite of that question, what would be your least favorite job to do around the farm?
Rocks, rocks. I hate rocks. Cannot stand rocks.
Is that one that you just
Um,
turn off the setting, or do you keep them on
no,
for the
I leave it
realism?
on. I do. I leave it on, and the way I try to play it is, if the rocks get big enough, then I'll go out and collect those really, really big rocks. But if they're small rocks, just let them be. I know they damage your equipment. They make your damage go up, but that's just life. That's just life. You're gonna have rocks in fields, but I typically can't stand them. Um, was really bad too because in 22 and we didn't have any mods out and we were trying to collect the rocks and you just had like a little 3 meter wide collector and you're trying to do this huge field. It'd take forever.
Yes.
And you'd start and you'd be really motivated to get it done, and then you'd be like, I'm done. I'm tired of these things.
What really drove me nuts with FS22 is, in theory, it seemed like a good concept. The problem was the execution for me. So when you were doing all the stone picking out of a field, if you set your worker off to kind of, chug around the field and whatnot, and let's say the worker did everything they were intending to do, they did it perfectly, no problem whatsoever. Originally, when that kind of feature first released, you couldn't unload into a trailer automatically. You had to
Mm.
disengage your worker and then dump into a trailer and then
Yeah,
re-engage them. I don't know if you
yeah.
remember that or not.
I vaguely do. Yeah, I vaguely do.
So then once you re-engaged your worker, it was a kind of a crapshoot of whether or not they were actually going to continue on the rest of the field that still need to be done, or if they were just going to go backwards over the same plot that they already took
If they've
care of.
already done, yeah, yeah. Well, and worker B is always messing up, always running into things, always flipping over, having major issues. Never hire worker B.
So one of the things that we have going as a constant joke on the channel here is AI stands for actual idiots.
Oh, of course. Yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah, and the AI in 25, the workers in 25, I've noticed the way they start and do fields, it's interesting. It's interesting to say the least.
well, and from what I understand, there's a slight issue going on that's being addressed in the next update from Giants. You could select to either do the up downs or you can do the headlands. That's what you're
Okay.
supposed to be
Yep.
able to do.
Yep.
But from what I understand right now, that's broken, and
Okay.
the workers will only do one or the other kind of thing, and it doesn't
Okay.
matter what you actually
Okay.
select.
Makes sense. I mean, at least they've identified it, and I will give Giants credit for that, as they identify things. I think they listen to the community, and they do try and implement patches as quickly as possible. I ran into a situation just recently where if you put down a husbandry, like a cow husbandry, um, you can you can create your own pasture, which I think is a great thing. You can it doesn't have to just be the pre-built pasture that comes with that particular building. You can make it wherever you want. Great feature 25. And I thought I tricked the game because you can go in and delete after you put the pasture down and it puts the grass down. You can go into demo mode and you can delete the fence that's there and put your own fence up,
Mm-hmm.
which is very cool. And you can add your own animals in there. And you can see them until you close the game out and come back into it. Then there's a bug. And the visualization of the animals is turned off. So they still show up as um the animal pin will have, say, 100 cattle in it, but you won't see anything. So
Okay.
maybe that'll get fixed. Maybe it won't. I don't know. Um,
Yeah, it's one of those where, like you were saying, Giants does work very hard, and when a problem is identified, that they're working at, getting it back up and running and getting it back to a normal state. I know that that's one of the kind of common running complaints is that, oh, well, this is a game I spent X amount and it's got bugs, it's broken, it's this, it's that, and the other thing. I come from a time where you were lucky, even in the modern era of the patches being a thing. I've come from communities where the developers are basically like, here it is, take it or leave it.
we're done.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, we're done.
So it's one of those
And,
where when we have a developer like Giants who is like not only actively going out there, but they're being proactive in trying to not only get feedback from the community, but also trying to identify, future issues from the previous issues, yeah, I would certainly rather there not be issues, but at least we have a supporter that is going out
Correct.
and actually
Correct.
working on the issues.
And look at other games that have come out. So we talked about Flight Sim earlier. Flight Sim 25 came out. I remember watching all the live videos of folks that were, it had been released, and everyone was sitting on like the loading screen for hours. There were these content creators that were live, and they're like, "We're going to show you the new game," and there were so many people on, and the servers just couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
And that's a massive, massive AAA game company that has everyone's going to have issues. Everyone's going to have issues. Stalker 2 came out, one of the most anticipated games of the year, been in development for years. And they've already gone through multiple patches and updates, some really big ones too. Similar situation though, they've got a development team that does listen to the community and is releasing those updates. So yeah, it takes time. And Farm Sim is exactly the same way. It takes time. I can't even remember what version we ended 22 on.
Yeah, it was something like 14, 15, 16. Like there were many different versions
I
that came
can't even
out.
remember. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as a content creator, what kind of advice would you give to somebody who's looking to start in the content creation space?
Have fun. Do something that you enjoy. Um, and just start. Start. Um, if you are thinking about doing it, give it a shot. Don't feel embarrassed about your own voice. Everyone hates their own voice when they hear themselves talking, for the most part. And don't worry about your appearance, what you look or sound like. Just go for it. Have fun. Um, Try not to get discouraged, but realize that there are very few instances and it's not always the rule, but there are very few instances of content creators that go from 0 subscribers to 1 million subscribers in a month.
Mm-hmm.
Not happening. It's a slow going process. There are tricks to it. I'm no expert on it. I'm still learning. Um, but you'll never get anywhere if you just don't give it a try. You've got to start. Um, don't look at other channels and compare yourself to them of they're better or they're worse than I. Be your own channel. Um, Come up with your own ideas. Um, Yeah, if you want to be a content creator, and that could be in YouTube, or if you want to make a mod, you want to try to make a mod, go for it. Um, Give it a try. Inside of Giant's Editor, when currently you can make a mod out of an existing mod. So there's a function in file. File make mod out of existing. It opens up all the in-game mods. It saves a copy for you, and it's your version, and it's the XML, it's the i3D, it's everything about that internal mod is right there for you to work on. Give it a try. Now, just be cautious. Do not modify any files on in the game. So don't go into any of the shared files inside of the game. That'd be in like your program X86 or 84, whatever it is, Farm Sim 25 data. Don't start deleting things or modifying. You will completely break the game. Always make copies, but give it a try. Have fun with it. Have fun with it. Um, and for anyone that sees a mod like that out there that's released, or someone's really trying to just learn something, think twice about the response you might give them on feedback. Now, if they're being jerks about it, right, and they think like their stuff is the best in the world and it's really not, and they don't want to take any advice, well, be nice, but maybe you don't have to help them as much. But just try to be nice. Be a kind person. Just be kind. Be kind.
Yeah, and that's all great advice. Yeah, I second all of that. What would you say has been your most memorable moment so far in your content creation career?
My most memorable moment. Um, Good question. Very good question. And I've got to think about that for just a little bit. Um,
So, one of the previous interviews I've done, um, to also give you a moment, one of the previous interviews I've done was with a gentleman by the name of Why Not Gaming, and he told us a story about him getting a comment in one of his videos, and the comment was from a soldier over in the Ukraine war, and
oh, yeah.
it was one of those where he basically was saying, "Hey, your content is, really helping me out through, obviously a very trying time." Um, and I'm not saying that to like compare any of the experiences you've had, but that's kind of like an example of, something that would be extremely memorable.
Yeah, yeah. I've had a couple, nothing of that significance and I think impact. But I have had some folks that have just mentioned again that they look forward to seeing the next video, watching the next video, excited when you post something. And again, it kind of goes back to people are sharing their time with you and I. We don't have infinite amount of time, so the fact that we're able to, whether or not you spend 10 minutes or an hour or the full 2.5 hours watching something, you're giving time. So to be able to give someone joy out of that, that is extremely meaningful. So I can't like pinpoint one exact thing. I think that story of the soldier, that's wonderful. That's amazing. Um, I would hope, would strive to be able to do something like that for someone.
Well, and one thing that is very amazing about doing what it is that you and I do, is you never know just how your content is going to interact with those people out there. You don't know when, uh, something that you say may hit somebody just right, and it's like, whoa, I really needed to hear that,
Mhm.
or whatever the case may be. You never know how people are going to consume your content, and it's a very a very humbling experience when you get that kind of feedback. When you get
It
somebody that just
is.
says,
Yes.
hey, I've been going through a really rough time here lately, and you've helped me out in X, Y, and Z, or whatever the
Mhm.
case may be. Um,
Well, and I think a smaller channel actually has the benefit of hearing stories like that and being able to impact someone. So when I don't know if you get emails or comments that come in, but I'm able to read them and actually respond to them, and I do try my best to respond to all of them. I'm not perfect. If you've sent a comment in and I haven't responded to you, I apologize. But I feel like at a smaller channel, you're able to do that. I could not imagine having, if you had 1 million subscribers, you could not respond to everybody. So you might not be able to have that really intimate moment of connecting with someone.
no, absolutely. Yeah, and I'm very much the same way. I try and respond to every single comment that I get, every single, message, whatever the case may be. I try to make myself available, and you're right. It offers more opportunities to be able to, have those kind of moments. So I think we got one more question for
One
this.
more.
One more for this segment.
12:23 a.m. Eastern. We've gone through the next day. We're in the
Whew.
future.
This is the longest interview we've done on this segment here, or on this show so far. So
Okay.
thank you very much for all the
Oh, my
time you've
pleasure.
dedicated to this. I greatly appreciate
I
it.
enjoy chatting.
So we briefly discussed a style of map at which you would love to see come out for FS25.
Hmm.
Now, if you had, let's say, all the skills that you would absolutely have to have in order to make, let's say, a really good mod, or even just a great mod,
Hmm. Hmm.
and like all the prerequisites were there. There was no like learning curve, there was no anything like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Throw all that into the cake, and what would be the mod that you would want to develop yourself and be able to release to everybody out there?
Okay. So it'd be a combination of Terraform. It'd be a version of Terraform of I can't remember who made the original for 22, but it would be like that. Because I want to be able to go in and use the equipment to actually change the landscape.
Oh, okay,
Digging.
okay. Okay, so
Um,
that's the mod where it actually allows you to like use like an excavator
yes.
and be able to dig
Yes.
into
So you
the.
can actually go in, you can use you can dig a hole in the game, not just exiting out to the map editor, creating the hole, and then going back into the game and pretending that you dug that hole. That is absolutely what I would add. Um, and I would take it a little step further, and I would want destruction of property.
Okay.
Because I cannot tell you how many times I hit fences and I hit buildings. And I knock over signs, the signs fall over. I think there is something that could be gained from that. Every sign that knocks over, you should lose money in your bank account. I think it should, like, you knock over a stop sign, $500 should come out of your account.
Mm-hmm.
I think that'd be kind of interesting. That could potentially be done currently, I think. But I'd love to see destruction of property where I run over that fence and the fence falls down, or
Yes.
I get fined or something. Crop destruction's kind of there. Like there's a mod that if you drive on their property and you destroy their crops, that it will take money out of your bank account. But I'd love to see where when I back up too far and drive through that door, that I lose the door on my barn.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
did have someone. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna second that. That sounds like it would be an amazing addition.
I had someone respond to me because I made a mention of that in a video that I just did, and they said it would be extremely difficult with the way the game is set up, and I get it. Like there would need to be so many added layers because you'd have to have the destruction. I get it, but I think it'd still be really cool.
Oh, it would be. I mean, that would be. I mean, that could be potentially for 28.
Maybe 28. Yeah, yeah. I think so we got ground deformation, we got better weather, we got better lighting. I thought that terraforming in game would come with 25, but it didn't. So that could be a 28 thing, and then maybe destruction. Destruction would be really interesting, but it may require a different engine for that. And then, it's a completely different game at that point. You might not have the modding capability and support that you have currently.
Yeah, no, exactly. All right, well, that is the end of that segment there. So let me go ahead and run through the chat again just really quickly to see if we have any questions from them. Let's see. Looks like we got Farming with Outlaw Ag. Thank you, Outlaw, for sending these in. Says, do you think you might try and make a 4X map for FS25?
I would certainly give it a try. I don't think I have the knowledge yet to do it. What I so there is Farmer Bob. I don't know if you're familiar with Farmer Bob.
I'm not.
Uh, okay, Farmer Bob has got some base maps out there. Got some very good tutorials online. Um, yeah, I would give it a try as long as I could use one of those templates that he's created. And I think Farmer Bob is very open to modders using his templates that he's created. I'll have to take a look and see. I think they're flat, like they literally are just they're a map that have been created. They're flat in the editor, but they have all of the prerequisites and all of the presets that need to be built into a map, and then you, the modder, can go in and tailor it to your liking. So, yeah, I would consider it.
Okay. Let's see. We've got Nacho Cast. Thank you, Nacho, for sending this in. I greatly appreciate it. It says, question: did you lose many subs during your hiatus?
I did not. Um, I was only probably out for 4 months. I did not lose subs. Thank you, first and foremost. But I didn't gain subs. It was very slow, very very slow. But I was fortunate that folks did. They didn't drop me.
Excellent, excellent. Let's see. Okay. Will T Gaming, also known as the FS Encyclopedia. Will, thank you so much for sending this in. I greatly appreciate it. Says, what does Stover think about Silver Run precision farming coming back, and what are his thoughts on the rest of the DLCs? So let's kind of break
Silver
this into
Yeah, so
portions there.
Silver Run, Precision Farming, and the rest of the DLCs. So Precision Farming has to come back. I think that's important. And if I'm not mistaken, was it John? Didn't John Deere support Precision Farming? One of the manufacturers was a very large supporter of Precision Farming.
I think you're right. I
Um,
think it was John Deere.
I think it was Deere that did that. So I think that needs to come back. There was a lot of, I think, knowledge that came from that as well, talking about organic farming and how you can, improve your soil types organically. You got a different score. If you didn't use herbicides, you didn't use manufactured fertilizers, you used more natural things. So I think that's important. Um, I think it'd be kind of neat to have in precision farming a no-till if we follow the same kind of path that precision farming did, where you get yield changes depending upon the actions that you make. I'd like to see some type of no-till in there. So, the idea that when you harvest, you don't go in and heavy till the land, you don't go and heavy plow the land. You literally plant right back on top of it, and you use the existing crop base that's there for your next harvest. I think that'd be interesting. So yeah, your precision farming, I think, will absolutely come back. Silver Run was less of a farming map and more of a forestry map. Very few fields in Silver Run. It was a very pretty map, and I enjoyed it. Again, I enjoyed the mountainous environment. There were more productions added to Silver Run. I think Silver Run and that DLC is where we started to get the buildings, where you had to start adding supplies to build things. And we now see that base game in 25, where now you can place a log cabin, and you need to now feed it supplies. Which, hey, think about it. That's kind of what I was talking about with like your family. You got to feed it things to build
Mm-hmm.
up. So it's kind of there. It's kind of built in. Um, but if you are a farmer and you're strictly looking at farming, you might not love Silver Run.
Yeah.
But if you do enjoy forestry, oh, absolutely, Silver Run. And then the third, this was again, who was this? This was from Nacho,
No, so this was Will T Gaming.
Will T Gaming, Will T Gaming. Well, the DLCs. DLCs are, I think, a very important part of gaming. Unfortunately, I think they're hyped up a little too much, in my opinion. I would like I would like to see more out of the DLCs. And we talked about the next set. You enjoy it, and that's great. I'm not so excited about that. Um, I'm not. I probably won't get it. I'm just saying. I probably won't. But that's okay. That's my choice.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be nice if Giants, instead of hyping it without telling us, would just tell us what the DLCs are. I think it'd be really great to just know what they are. To know that the first DLC is going to be this product. The second, we're going to do 4 DLCs a year, and here's what they are, and have them planned out, and go ahead and advertise them. I don't see any downside to that. I only see upside, unless your DLCs are not that exciting. And then if you tell everybody what they are and they're not that exciting, well, you might not do very well. So that's my take on DLCs.
Gotcha. And then he also asks, what does Stovers think about Farming Simulator VR?
VR, yeah, it's immersion. Um, I get sick playing VR, so I've got glasses too, and I have yet to find a good VR headset that actually fits me well with my glasses. Or you have to adjust there's some adjustments inside them that you can take your glasses off and you can actually see the screen properly. Um, I don't know what farm sim would be like. I have watched a number of videos of content creators doing racing in VR, and it is fascinating. Like it is, and not even just VR, but like augmented VR, where it's they've built a cockpit, and they're also running VR, and so you've got the tactile feel of what you're doing, plus the visual sensation of what you're doing. And then some of them have, I mean, again, money is no object. They've built in some of the, the haptic feedback and the full motion rigs. So, I mean, I mean, these are massively amazing rigs. You're almost in it. You're almost doing it. So I would have to try it, but I don't think in my particular situation I would invest the money in the hardware that would be required to play Farm Sim VR. I would want to try it out first.
I gotcha. And looking through the rest of the chat, I'm not seeing any more questions. So now we're going to move on to our third and final segment called That's a Silage Wrap. This is where we're going to start closing things out and
Okay.
signing off from here. So, again, first off, I want to thank you so very, very much. Normally we keep this at 2 hours. We are now well beyond 3 hours. So
We're having
very,
fun.
yes, I had an absolute blast here tonight, and I hope you did too.
I did. Thank you so much. Again, I think what you're doing is great for the community. It's great to hear from other content creators, modders, just people in general. You put a face to something. You know, we see something come up on a screen. You know, we see that X, Y, and Z created a mod and they submitted it, and we're like, okay, cool. But then we actually see the person that made it. We hear from them, we talk with them, we realize that they're a person. I think it's really, really commendable.
I appreciate you saying that. I've said here on the channel that that's the goal of this series is to, put the person uh, in front of the mods, in front of the maps, in front of the content, and show off that they're not just the content creator, they're not just the modder map maker, that they're an actual person, and to humanize them and to allow them an opportunity to be able to connect with their fan base, with other people from my channel who may not be as familiar with them as others may be, and allow them the opportunity to be able to be like, hey, this is who I am. This is what I do behind the scenes. This is the things that kind of motivate me, that drive me, and hopefully, open the uh, open doors of understanding from people when things don't go exactly the way that they planned on them to go. So
Correct.
that's,
Yep.
again, my kind of idealistic version of things, but
We're human.
yeah, just
We're
ultimately,
just people. We're
exactly.
on a rock. I always say I was talking with someone today. We're on a rock right now. This big rock. We're flying through space, thousands of miles an hour. My errors in my mod for my 4100 tractor probably doesn't matter. I'm gonna try to fix them. I will. I promise. I have good intentions on it, but we're all human. We all make mistakes. We're all people.
Well, and more to that fact, it's not only just that we're human and all that, but we all start somewhere. It sounds like
Yeah.
these are
Oh
the
yeah.
first mods that you've made or that you've really kind of put out there, and it's one of those that it's almost to be expected that there are to be errors to be found.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it'd be one of those things where somebody could come by and very easily be like, oh well, these don't work right, this does that, and then start haranguing you for not getting it 100% right as it's your first go around. You know, I would hope again that somebody would come out and see this and be like, you know what? He owns it. He understands that there's errors, and his intention is to work on them,
Mhm.
and not
Mhm.
go straight into the like, oh, how dare you? I expect this to be perfect on release, and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, like I said, idealistic, I understand, but you never know. You never know how somebody's words may, you know, affect another person. Like I was saying earlier. But do you have any future plans or projects?
Future plans and projects. So I think just getting better with my storytelling. Um, Again, I'm trying to not do things that are trying to keep it realistic. I'm trying not to come up with like hokey storylines. Nothing wrong with that. I don't think it works for me. Um, I'd love to get into 4K. I really would. Right now I'm capturing things, everything in 1440. It's 60, which I think is okay for what I'm doing right now. But I'd love to get into 4K. I think as the graphics get better with the game, the higher quality you can put out on YouTube, the better. I'd like to learn more about the XML side of things and how you're actually writing some of the scripting for a mod. Collisions, they are the bane of my existence. I just cannot figure them out for some reason. I kind of get them, I kind of don't, but I'll tell you what, I'll make a mod, I'll do something, and I swear the collision is perfect. It's exactly where it should be. I've got it set as a child. It's accurate in all the drop downs, and then it comes into the game and it falls right through the darn map. Or the front of the thing, it tips over, and the whole front of the tractor is just sitting halfway through the map. And I'm going, what in the world did I do wrong? I don't know what I did wrong. So I'd like to improve that. That's about it for right now. I don't want to. I don't want to change what I'm doing. I think again, I want to still continue to have fun with it. I don't want it to become a job. I want it to still maintain and stay a hobby.
Absolutely. Can you remind us once again where we can find you?
Yeah, so with the Stovers, that's my last name. That's me. I'm on YouTube. You can check me out on With the Stovers. I'm on Facebook with the Stovers, and I'm on itch.io with the Stovers. And I will say this: if there's any other place I should be, let me know. I don't know. There's so many different areas. I know there's Twitter, and there's I'm learning Discord. I've heard of Twitch. I genuinely don't know of all the areas that you should be in from a content creation standpoint. I grew up with YouTube, so YouTube was just where I kind of migrated. But I might be doing it wrong. Who knows?
All right. Well, again, I want to thank you so very much for coming out here tonight, hanging out with us, and again, being the longest interview that we've had up until this point. So, again, thank you so very much. I had an absolute blast, and again, I hope you did too.
My pleasure. Thanks for doing this. Again, I look forward to other content creators that you get on here. Wish you the very best of success. Keep having fun on console. It's okay that you're a red tractor guy. It's okay. We can still get along. And just keep having fun. Keep having fun.
Oh, absolutely. I absolutely plan on having a blast. Having a blast. But before we sign off, I'm going to go ahead and throw this out there. If anybody out there in the chat wants to see me do more of these style of interviews where I get to talk to other creators within the farming simulator space, feel free to let me know who it is you would like to see on this show. Go ahead and reach out to me on any of my socials. They're all listed in the description as well as on the screen right now. Go ahead and reach out to me. Let me know. Say, hey, so-and-so would be a great person to go ahead and get on the show. I can reach out to them and go ahead and do my best to actually procure them, get them onto the show. So yeah, if there's anybody like that, go ahead and reach out to me directly and I'll do my best. But all that being said, I hope everybody out there tonight enjoyed this show. If you did, please show me by liking, sharing, subscribing, following, commenting, doing all the things. The algorithms enjoy you doing. The shows you're engaged with this channel and enjoying the content. And that being said, I hope everybody has a fantastic day. And take care. Hey, Stover, hang on just 1 second. I'll go ahead and meet you at the end of the outro.